Rogers TV Ottawa.
For local news in Ottawa and the Valley, this is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Thursday, March 10th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, minus 3 degrees, minus 2 in Smiths Falls, and here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. The final proof of genocide in Ukraine by Russia, at least according to Ukraine's president. The latest on the invasion with City News reporter Jamie Pulfer.
Russian President Vladimir Putin is accused of sinking to a new low in his war in Ukraine after the deadly bombing attack on a maternity hospital in the besieged city of Mariupol. Now, it happened during what was supposed to be a ceasefire that was proposed by Russia. 3 people were killed, including a child, more than a dozen injured. The footage from the scene devastating. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky speaking through an interpreter.
A strike on a maternity hospital is a final proof. A proof of genocide of Ukrainians is taking place.
And we're just getting an update from the World Health Organization now saying there have been 24 attacks on healthcare in Ukraine since the fighting began, resulting in a dozen deaths. Ukrainian and Russian diplomats met in Turkey today in their highest level talks so far, but little progress was made. Ukraine's Dmytro Kuleba says that he and Russian counterpart Sergei Lavrov were unable to reach a consensus on humanitarian issues, including a 24-hour ceasefire.
We did not make progress on this since it seems that there are other decision makers for this matter in Russia.
And he says that Russia conveyed that the military aggression will continue until Ukraine surrenders, something he calls unacceptable. And there are growing warnings from the West suggesting that Russia's invasion is about to take a more indiscriminate turn, and a frustrated Moscow could use chemical weapons. Jamie Pulfer, City News.
City News time 9:02, and now your forecast with meteorologist Jill Taylor.
The wind quite brisk this morning, but it will settle down for the afternoon, and we'll have increasing cloud as we work through the day. We'll start, though, with a bit of sunshine. Our high today, +2, another mild day. The average high is about +1. Tonight, cloudy, -8, and tomorrow, mainly cloudy for a good portion of the day. Get into that light snow late tomorrow night, 5 centimeters possible, the high -1. For today, the high +2.
Right now, it's minus 3 degrees in Ottawa, -2 in Smiths Falls. Well, following the provincial announcement concerning mask wearing, the largest school board in Ottawa is preparing its response. The province will not mandate mask wearing in schools or elsewhere except places like hospitals or long-term care homes as of the end of March break. So that's Monday, March 21st. Ottawa Carleton District Board calls it a significant update. The board says it's going to review this new direction very closely, and it promises more information for staff, parents, and students will be coming today. Police are still searching for a missing 14-year-old Kanata girl. Avery Vosen was last seen around the noon hour Monday in the Bridlewood area of Kanata. Now, we do have her picture up at ottawa.citynews.ca. If you have any information or know where she is, you're asked to contact Ottawa Police. City News time 9:03. If you're getting your green on early this year, police are warning they will be out in force this weekend. St. Patrick's Day is a week from today, but many will likely celebrate the patron saint of Ireland this weekend. Ottawa Police and Bylaw will have what they call a large and sustained presence in the Byward Market and Sandy Hill areas. While officers will be there to ensure safety, they will also focus on liquor license offenses as well as your general conduct. I'm Andrew Boyle for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Inform your opinion.
It's the Rob Snow Show on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Oh, enjoy the weather win streak. We have some sloppy business headed our way. But come Monday, the sun will set after 7 p.m. So that'll be nice. Good morning. Welcome to the Rob Snow Show on City News, local news, provincial news, national news, international news. If it's in the news, we're kind of covering it today. Coming up, local news. local news. Former city councillor, longtime West End city councillor, Alex Cullen is going to join me again. He's the president of the Federation of Citizens Associations of Ottawa, kind of an umbrella group that represents a lot of the local community associations. And we're going to talk about this very important planning committee meeting that is happening this morning, starting at about 25 minutes from now at the City Hall. Housing affordability is very much in focus. I don't think it's any secret we have a problem with housing affordability in this city and, in fact, all across Ontario. And to try and get a handle on things, the Ford government created a task force, the Housing Affordability Task Force. And it released a report, came out with a series of recommendations, 55 recommendations. This is what we think you should do to make housing more affordable. Build more homes, major theme. Streamline the planning process, the development process. Build more homes, build them faster. But it's getting a lot of pushback from the city of Ottawa. And we had the top manager from the city of Ottawa in charge of planning, housing, these issues. Mr. Willis, was on our show just the other day. And the concern at the city level is that the city will lose some local control over the local planning process, and that the province would be setting a lot of the standards from now on. And you know it's kind of an old thing. What do bureaucrats know in Toronto about planning for neighborhoods here in the city of Ottawa? Okay, legitimate gripe. So Alex Cullen's very in tune with all of these issues. It's no secret he's no fan of the Ford government either. I mean, that's well documented. Alex has been an NDP MPP. He's been an organizer for the Democrats for many years, if not decades. So that's coming up. Also, on this meeting of the Planning Committee today, Natalie Belovic, president of the Manor Park Community Association. Big. I was reading through this report this morning, the plans for Manor Park. It's going to take a long time, many years, but 10, 15 years from now, you're not even going to recognize Manor Park. The city is basically proposing two Manor Parks. That there's going to be, if this massive proposal goes ahead, there'd be a Manor Park North and a Manor Park South. Manor Park North, large, low-rise development, been there for decades. You know where it is, St. Laurent Boulevard, Hemlock Road. And a Manor Park South, Brittany Drive, St. Laurent Boulevard, Montreal Road, that area. Eventually, a lot of it is going to be redeveloped. And there's a pledge from the developer, at least for what's known as Manor Park Estates, which would be Manor Park North. There's a promise no one will be displaced. So we'll get into the plans and what the local community association thinks of the plans. Major redesign. I mean, it affects hundreds, probably thousands of people. And where are they all going to live? So that's all up for discussion at the planning committee meeting today. We'll talk politics this morning. We'll start with the latest on the Conservative Party's leadership race, with today being the day that Jean Charest is supposed to make it official. At an event in Calgary, he's in, the former Quebec premier, jumping into the race. And Patrick Brown is rumored to be readying an announcement that he too will join the race, that he may make that announcement, the rumor is, this weekend, probably Sunday, with a lot of the former Aaron O'Toole crowd now helping out Patrick Brown. Althea Raj of the Toronto Star, really good scoop this morning. The scoop is that Charest and Brown, they're working together. Okay? Because they want a so-called moderate to lead the Conservative Party. So they're going to form like a tag team. They're going to try and work it so that Poilievre can't win. He's not a moderate. He's not moderate enough. Althea Raj describes it as a non-aggression pact. Okay? You say nice things about me, I'll say nice things about you. I mean, it's interesting, depending on who you listen to, and what columns you read. Jean Charest, for example, is either about to pull off a comeback for the ages, or he has no chance at all and he's completely wasting his time. This is what makes these races fun to watch, though, right? It's going to be a heck of a summer watching these conservatives beat each other up in this battle royale for the heart and soul of the team in blue. I wonder if the team is going to even survive intact, actually, honest to goodness. We'll also talk about Ontario politics. 84 days now until Election Day in the province of Ontario, and the big news yesterday, the mask mandate soon to be no more. And by the end of April, according to the Chief Medical Officer of Health, all pandemic-related health restrictions will end if we stay on this track and, things don't take a turn for the worse. But Premier Ford is getting a lot of heat today from his many, many critics. They say he's not doing this ending the mask mandate. He's not doing it based on medical science. He is doing it based on political science. That it is a purely political calculation, and it will endanger people's health. Now, he tried to counter this yesterday. He described himself as... do you have a clip? Super cautious. He was super cautious. And if anything, he's been overly cautious. And he points to all the people who think he's moved way too slow when it comes to easing pandemic-related health restrictions.
Something we're going to move forward cautiously, and if someone wants to keep them on, God bless them. Good for them. But I know a lot of people don't want to keep them on, and again, we aren't leading the way in this. We're kind of middle of the pack. I know down in the U.S. with CDC, their recommendations about getting rid of the mask, but it's going to be up to the people of Ontario. If you want to keep your mask on, keep it on.
Okay. There was also polling out this week. Good news for the Ontario PCs. Less than 3 months from the election. They're up. This is a Leger poll. Up by 12 over the Liberals and the New Democrats. 39 for the PCs. 39% for the PCs. Liberals, NDP, 27 each. But... almost 6 in 10, 57%, said they might change their mind. They might change their mind. The problem with the Liberals is that they have a new leader, and he's not very well known. In fact, 1 in 3, according to this poll, they've never heard of Stephen Del Duca. So that might be a problem. Nobody knows the guy. We're also going to talk about international affairs and the terrible news that continues to come out of Ukraine by the hour. Once again this week, we're lucky to be joined by Professor Elliot Tepper, Distinguished Senior Fellow, Norman Paterson School of International Affairs at Carleton. He's with us every Thursday for a feature we call The World. That's coming up at 11:30. And he'll offer his insights into all the latest developments. I mean, is there the potential for some sort of war crimes prosecution, given the reported atrocities that Russia is committing? We will talk about the air war. Jets in Poland moving into Ukraine, then air support from the United States shoring up Poland. How would something like that work? How would it be perceived by the Russians? The sanctions, are they having any effect? The energy angle. Canada has an abundance of oil and natural gas. And the Globe and Mail's editorial yesterday was headlined, "The world needs more Canadian oil and gas." Like headlines I never thought I'd see in the Globe and Mail. The world needs more Canadian oil and gas. It admonishes the Biden administration for first canceling the Keystone XL pipeline, only to find itself now courting the unsavory governments of Venezuela, of Iran, and of Saudi Arabia. And yet here we are, and we're so nice. We're Canadian, and we're right next door. And it calls on Mr. Trudeau to press President Biden on this. But if you were paying attention yesterday to Mr. Trudeau's news conference in Germany, it didn't sound to me like there was any kind of urgency on the energy side of things. So anyway, don't miss that. Professor Tepper at 11:30. It's always one of the highlights of my week. And we'll do the Talk Back Hour between 10 and 11 o'clock. It's an hour of opinions. It's an hour of phone calls. Your opinions, your phone calls at 750-1310. And this morning, the mask mandate coming to an end March 21st after the March break. What is your reaction to that announcement from the Premier? Do you think it's about time, or is it too soon? Have your say. Alex Cullen next on the Rob Snow Show on City News.
It started out with a small outdoor booth in what was called Artist Alley, which is actually the area just outside our store on William Street, where for a couple of years we sold our jewelry directly on the street. And then we slowly evolved to having an indoor location in this building, 55 Barwood Market Square. We then moved to another location in Place de Ville, and then moved back down here on Dalhousie Street at Irrigere in the 90s. And then back into this building again in 2000 as a collection. I do a collection of jewelry called Cirque that's mainly beaded work with a combination of semi-precious and vintage beads. And then she does a hat collection called Fanfreluche that's all cut and sewn hats in a variety of fabrics and for all of the seasons of the year. We've curated and sourced the artisans that we represent in a lot of different ways over the years since it's been, since 1985. Some people come to us since we're known, and other artisans that we represent might recommend that they come and see us. Some people we find at craft shows, or we see their work, somebody wears it in, and we go and track it down and bring it. And then some people, interestingly, are with us in one medium, and then sometimes they evolve to another. They're all Canadian and mainly local. With the roughly 50 people that we have, I'd say more than half of those are Ottawa-Gatineau, and then the rest are from other cities in Canada, Montreal, Toronto, Vancouver, etc. If you can afford it, go to a small business and spend some money. It's lovely when you come in and give me a pep talk and tell me how much you love this place and you've been coming here for years. But if you can afford it, please spend some money too, because all the pep talks in the world are not going to pay my rent, which is still full rent even when we're closed. Then secondly, if you can't afford to spend money, follow the businesses that you want to support on social media. Go to their Instagram, go to their Facebook, follow their Twitter, and then retweet, share their Facebook page, like and comment, because if you can't afford to, as many of us can't right now, to do extra expenditures, doing all of those little things like that will raise the visibility of those small businesses, and hopefully for them result in some online or curbside or other business for them.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News,
101.1 FM
and 1310 AM.
This morning, at the city's planning committee, the city will respond to the provincial government's Housing Affordability Task Force report. That report says the province of Ontario needs to commit to building 1.5 million new homes over the next 10 years. But to accomplish that might mean the province would assume control of planning decisions that are now made at the municipal level, and that concerns the city's planning department. Alex Cullen joins me this morning, former city councillor, former MPP, and he is the president of the Federation of Citizens Associations of Ottawa. Good morning.
Good morning, Rob.
Do you share the city's concerns?
By and large, we do. We find this report is very biased towards the development industry. It seeks to impose provincial standards on local decision-making that reflects the community's concerns. We all want to have affordable housing across the province. Certainly here in Ottawa, housing prices are going through the roof. The city does have an official plan that seeks to develop vacant land, seeks to use intensification using appropriate controls, but still we have a lot of intensification that goes on in the city, and we simply don't see the need for Big Brother province to impose a one-size-fits-all on the city of Ottawa. Ottawa is not Toronto, it's not Kingston, it's not Owen Sound. There has to be a consideration for local circumstance. We prize our tree canopy, for example, and can we have housing growth with maintaining the tree canopy? Yes, we can. We have those policies, but it's not going to help if it's coming from Toronto.
Okay. For example, one of the recommendations is to get rid of local rules that are meant to preserve neighborhood character, however you want to define that, neighborhood character. One of them would be a tree canopy, for example, restrictions on shadows that are cast by new buildings because of height, what have you, and replacing those with provincial standards. What do you think of that?
Well, not very much.
Not very much.
No, not at all.
Okay.
So,
tell me how you really feel, Alex, as usual. Yeah.
Well, I mean, look, intensification is going to happen, but we have to respect the fact that when people buy into a neighborhood, they're not just buying a house to live and sleep in. They're also buying into what that neighborhood has to offer in terms of trees, in terms of parks, in terms of access to amenities. So to have a provincial standard when you have different kind of communities with different kind of structures, the false notion that's being put up is that neighborhood characteristics are a barrier to development. It is not. I mean, you look across the city, you can see lots of examples of intensification. Intensification gets a bad name. Most of the time, it works quite well, but occasionally there are fights over too much being asked for, and that's where it begins to get its reputation. But you don't need one-size-fits-all on these things. You do have to respect the fact that these homes occur in a neighborhood that people bought into. Yes, we do want to see a better use of land, but it doesn't have to be at the cost of throwing out good policies with respect to trees, access to parks, and the rest of the local characteristics that make a community worth buying into.
Right. You believe we should have transit-oriented development. I think we should have transit-oriented development. I don't think you'll get much disagreement on transit-oriented development. The city is a big fan of transit-oriented development. If we're going to spend whatever the price tag is going to be in the end, maybe $10 billion on light rail, we want people to live near it, right? So one of the recommendations in this report is allowing as-of-right zoning of unlimited height and unlimited density. Unlimited height, unlimited density near major transit stations if municipalities fail to hit provincial density targets, and allowing 6 to 11-story buildings on any bus route. What do you think of that? What do you think of that?
So part of it we support. I mean, it's in our official plan. We're already there. We don't need the province to tell us to do more about this because we want to have good use of our rapid transit system. So the intensification around light rail makes sense, and we're already there. But to say that you're going to have more, up to 11 stories along a bus route, well, there are bus routes and bus routes. I mean, arterials, that's one thing. Yeah. But a street that has half-hour bus service, give me a break. That doesn't make sense.
Yeah, because I guess the language in the report is actually any street utilized by public transit.
Yeah.
So it's I guess the word is kind of how do you define that? Any street used by public transit, right?
And again, that's an example of the province just not looking at local circumstance. I mean, we have, as I said, Carleton Avenue, Maryville Road, all the arterials, sure. But when you have a street like Dovercourt with half-hour bus service, no, it doesn't make sense whatsoever, because you're building capacity there, intensification there, when you don't have sufficient transit service, because it's only coming once every half hour. So there has to be a better balance, and that's what we failed to see in this task force report. It's too biased towards the development industry. It's not balanced to respect the fact that there are local circumstances you have to pay attention to.
Okay. What should be done about heritage designations? The province, its task force believes that this is open to abuse and that it limits development, heritage designation.
Not at all.
Not at all?
Not in Ottawa, anyway.
I don't know.
I mean,
I've seen some pretty suspect heritage designations over the years. Just because it's old doesn't mean it has heritage.
Well, the heritage designation does not stop redevelopment. We have lots of heritage properties that have been redeveloped. We have very good rules on this. There's the ability for the homeowner to appeal if there is a problem with the designation, but by and large, the designation actually enhances property value. You don't lose property value because you do have the ability to develop within that envelope. So it's maintaining the facade, but you can do anything you like within the interior. So I think the heritage part of this task force report gets a very bad ride from this task force. It almost demonizes it, and yet we don't have that history here in Ottawa. Our heritage list is not huge. I mean, we have 330,000 properties, residential properties in this town. These are homes. We have somewhere around 12,000 maybe. That's even 1% of that may be designated heritage, and you still can develop. So, I mean, this is actually an item of provincial interest. It's in the provincial policy statement that all municipalities have to adhere to have policies that conserve heritage. And, face it, if we don't conserve heritage, we don't have history.
Okay. Should it be more difficult to appeal developments before the province's land tribunal? The task force recommends a $10,000 fee.
That's egregious. That's absolutely egregious. Okay. Who can afford $10,000?
Well, it's also developers appeal to the land tribunal, right?
Well, they can afford $10,000.
Well, they can afford it, yeah.
But the people who live in the community who see a problem with the process, who see a problem with what is being proposed, they have a voice. And it's not just a planning committee. If there's a planning committee decision that says, well, you need to respect the zoning, you need to respect the rules governing tree canopy, what have you, and it gets appealed, they ought to be able to have standing at that land tribunal. So this notion of $10,000, I mean, it is egregiously wrong.
All right. Hey, always great to hear from you, Alex Cullen. Thank you so much for this morning.
Pleasure.
Yeah, we'll speak soon.
I'll be at planning committee talking on this very topic.
Okay. Look forward to it. Planning committee meeting starting 2 minutes from now. Coming up right after the news, it's Ontario Politics This Week. This is the Rob Snow Show on City News.
news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Thursday, March 10th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, -2 degrees. It's -1 in Smiths Falls. Here's what's making news this hour. Reports as many as 24 medical buildings have been targeted by Russian attacks in Ukraine. It included a maternity hospital. Now, condemnation from Ukrainian and Western officials who battled back with words like it's a war crime. Ukrainians saying it amounts to genocide. Talks between foreign ministers from Russia and Ukraine failed to reach an agreement today. The Russians saying Ukraine needs to surrender. Former Quebec Premier and once federal progressive conservative leader Jean Charest is tossing his hat into the ring for the federal conservative leadership. Formal announcement is set for tonight in Calgary, but Charest's campaign has already launched a website and a Twitter account using the slogan, "Built to Win." The campaign frames Charest as a candidate who can unite the party. Planning Committee in Ottawa today will focus on a couple of things in particular, the 55 recommendations from the province on housing and a major development for the Saint Laurent Brittany area near Beechwood Cemetery for a residential, commercial, and parkland redevelopment. City News Time, 9:31. I'm Andrew Boyle. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
He's the opinionated Ottawa icon.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's time for Ontario Politics This Week with Lindsay Maskell, Liberal strategist, former advisor to Premier McGuinty. Good morning, Lindsay Maskell.
Good morning, Rob.
Andrew Brander is vice president with Crestview Strategy, former advisor to the Ford government. Good morning, Andrew Brander.
Hey there, Rob.
Hey, so we've been mixing in a little bit of federal politics because it's so much fun. And once again, I want to start by talking about the Conservative Party leadership race, because it sounds like Patrick Brown is getting ready to enter the race. He has settled his lawsuit with CTV News. How do you think, Andrew, let's start with you. How do you think members will view the settling of the lawsuit with CTV? He says his name has been cleared. Has his name been cleared, do you think? No?
Yeah, I don't think whether legally it's been cleared or not really matters in these types of instances. This is something that we tell our clients all the time. Trust takes a lifetime to build and a moment to break. And the question around this really is, who remembers all that drama? And unfortunately for Patrick, it's the same type of person who would remember the events of his resignation as PC leader vividly, who will likely be the people voting in the Conservative Party leadership. I would say Patrick has done a lot of work to rehabilitate that reputation, despite these allegations hanging over his head. Less than 6 months after that, he moved to Brampton, 9th largest city in the country, never lived there before, was elected mayor, settled down with his family. They now have 2 kids. I think he's done a lot to demonstrate that he's a different person today than when those allegations were made. But Patrick has a demonstrated record now that he can run on. So I think it's going to be a lot about refocusing people's attention around that and trying to move past those that time, those allegations of that time in his life.
Okay. What do you think, Lindsay?
Well, this case has always been so fascinating, and although I do vividly remember, the 9:45 at night press conference at Queen's Park and him running down the stairs and being under attack, that's the thing we need to remember was he was under attack by his own party. That was actually, it's only, March 10th is the day Doug Ford becomes the leader of the party. This was all not that long ago. But I think that the thing that we need to sort of look at is remembering that, No charges were laid. It was the allegation was that somebody underage was in his home and she was uncomfortable and then he took her home. Like, it was not a, it concerns me that people don't have a pathway to redemption if their name is cleared, which I believe that it has.
Okay.
And that they have a path forward in any career in life, whether it's in politics is different. So I get it's all about perception.
Right.
But I really do think people have become invested in the Patrick Brown comeback. Because he was not found to have done anything wrong. Maybe just a
that
bad
he was hard done by.
Yeah, and that it was that
right.
that shouldn't have ruined his career. Knowing that I think a lot of people would think it would have been interesting to see what the last 4 years of Ontario would have been like under Patrick Brown. So that leaves a big opening and opportunity for him in this leadership race.
When I brought this up last week as a call-in topic for my listeners, and I have a lot of conservative listeners, and a lot of them identified as card-carrying conservatives, and they will have a vote in the conservative leadership. Only one brought up the allegations that were made in the CTV story. What really, for people who did not plan to vote for Patrick Brown in the leadership, what they didn't like the most was that he flip-flopped on the carbon tax. That's what really set them off, and his move from "I will never have a carbon tax" to "we should have a carbon tax," for a lot of conservatives, non-starter. I'm not voting for him. He wants to have a carbon tax. No thanks. No thanks. And I wonder if that's going to hurt him. I mean, you see Poilievre is using that already, right? Mm-hmm. Carbon tax. So, I don't know. Any comment on that?
Well, I just think it's interesting that it was probably he was too progressive for the average conservative, right? But it's going to be interesting to watch, because I believe that even gas prices where they are right now, even conservatives have moved to a lot of conservatives, just not the ones that typically are voting in a leadership race, right? This is always the challenge for them.
Right.
It is the average conservative. Many of them care greatly about the environment, but this is not what gets you elected as the leader of the Conservative Party, which will be the challenge. But they're going to see his organization skills. That's for sure.
Andrew, I mean, the flip-flop on the carbon tax I think had a lot to do with how it ended for Aaron O'Toole.
Bingo, exactly, and it's fresh in the mind of conservatives. And Aaron O'Toole's case, which is virtually the same path as Patrick Brown's, in the sense that both ran during the leadership opposed, and then both, announced support for it after. But that is going to be the case study that's the feather in the cap for any conservative that wants to, go back to the previous party stance of a very strong opposition to the carbon tax. So, I do think that's going to be a huge challenge, and where he lands on it this time around, and how he reconciles two visions of that in the past.
Okay, let's talk about this Althea Raj report in the Toronto Star this morning. Let me read a little bit here. Quote, Patrick Brown, who is expected to announce his bid Sunday, and former Quebec Premier Jean Charest, who launches his candidacy Thursday, have forged a pact. The men have been friends for more than 25 years. The two have spoken at length about the leadership race. I'm told to expect neither will say a bad word about the other. A non-aggression pact, if you will, and that they will publicly help one another. Their goals are similarly aligned, a united but more inclusive party that represents the country. Each anticipates the other's supporters will mark him as their second choice on the party's ranked ballots, and they may make that expectation clear when members start receiving their ballots this summer. So we have it's an alliance. It's a tag team. What is your reaction to this diabolical plot, Andrew Brander?
This is the side of politics you don't see that often. This sort of deep-rooted friendship going back a quarter of a century. The picture that they've run with the story, young Patrick Brown, mushroom cut, gazing up upon a Jean Charest
posters.
The way literally like a 14-year-old.
Seriously. Like I had a poster of a Lamborghini on my wall. He's got posters of Jean Charest on his. Yeah.
Exactly. You know what? I think it's genuine. I do think it says something when we look a bit more deeply. It says something about what they are acknowledging that they're up against. It's saying something about progressives really banding together to present a united front in what they view as a battle for the soul of the party. 338 this morning released a small survey among CPC members that has Pierre with the support of about 41% of members. The same poll, if you were to combine the support of Charest, Brown, and McKay, you only get to about 22%. So it's a pretty bleak picture for progressives looking at this, and they've looked at the only three results. We've only had three leaderships under this iteration of the Conservative Party, and progressives have never been able to win it. Right, Harper besting Belinda Stronach, Scheer winning over 13 other candidates, many of whom were much more progressive, and Erin O'Toole at least winning the leadership as a true blue conservative. So to me, it says they're looking at this. They're saying it hasn't worked in the past. We've got to try something different. Let's be honest. Let's be upfront about this right off the top. And that's a little bit refreshing to see.
Okay. What do you think of this dynamic duo here, Lindsay?
Well, the photo did prompt somebody to send me a funny contrast photo to the poster on the wall, which was Katie Holmes with the poster of Tom Cruise on her wall, and said that didn't end well either. But it is. But I think it's an interesting moment, right? Because first of all, we know people have an appetite post-pandemic for positivity, right? Like they just are not going to have an appetite for a vicious campaign. There is an opportunity in that it could be quite endearing, right? Like it could have a very endearing quality to it that people could get behind. So it would be interesting to see, but I think I don't think it's a pathway to success, but I do think it would have a good chance of growth for the Conservative Party. Until they move to free memberships or having a line in the sand about what the Conservative Party means now in 2022 and going forward, they're just going to keep having the same cycle. But it could make for an interesting show to see them combined.
Let me run one more thing by you. I should have put this on my list. I apologize for just springing this on you. But apparently, well, I know Patrick Brown. We all know Patrick Brown is opposed to Bill 21, and apparently Jean Charest, this is going to be part of his pitch as well, that he will speak in opposition to Bill 21, the secularism bill in Quebec. I was told Patrick Brown's thinking here, politically thinking, because I think it's morally and ethically the right thing to do to be opposed to that legislation. Mm-hmm. But politically, it's also been the previous leader's position on Bill 21 that, well, that's a Quebec issue and we should just leave that, it's politically been a loser because it did very little for the Conservative fortunes in Quebec, even with the endorsement of Premier Legault. But it actually may have cost the Conservative support in other parts of the country, like Peel, York, ethnically diverse regions in the Vancouver area. What do you think there's anything to that, Andrew? Do you think there's something to that?
To be honest, I don't.
You don't?
Okay. I think there is an argument there to be made, and while I agree with everything you just said, I do think it is certainly not, out of our jurisdiction to be weighing in on these types of issues of anything happening in a Canadian province, and speak out against them. However, what I would say is, in my experience, voters are extremely self-interested.
Okay.
And if they really don't see it as something that is a threat to them, that really impacts them, then they're going to vote on much more salient issues that matter to them at the end of the day. And I don't know if Bill 21 in Quebec is really top of mind for someone in
Brampton
Peel region.
Right. Okay. All right. Interesting. What do you think, Lindsay? What do you think?
Yeah, and if it is top of mind, they probably weren't a conservative voter to begin with, right? So I also think if it's an issue that is seizing a community, it's a more progressive viewpoint and probably would not have aligned. But it's certainly it's interesting how something like this issue did take up. Bill 21 took up several days of the campaign and lots of air, yet did not play out, in my opinion, in other parts of the country.
It's a Quebec thing.
Yeah, it just didn't have even all the air of at least 3 days of the election on it.
Okay, when we come back, we'll talk about the mask mandate ending March 21st and how Ford is selling that. Many people think it's about time, and probably just as many think it's too soon to be ending the mask mandate. And a new poll from Leger. Less than 90 days to go until Election Day in Ontario, and the PCs are up by a dozen. We'll talk about both of those when we come back. Rob Snow Show here on City News.
An old-fashioned traditional grocery store. You're going to find a butcher, okay? You want a steak cut a certain way, you're going to get it. There's flour piled in the warehouse. There's mixers on the floor. There's flour on the floor. The bakery's rented out to Frank Nicolo. It's him and his son come in at night. They mix the dough, they roll the dough, and they bake the dough. It's not the traditional frozen and thaw and put it in the bin, okay? It's made from scratch 7 days a week. It's probably the only bakery left in Ottawa that does that. Then customer service. We're big on that. The cashiers, the deli. You're not. If you ask for something, they're not going to point. It's an aisle number 7. They're going to bring you there. Okay. If you have too much groceries out, we'll take it out to your car. You know what I mean? There's nothing we don't do for our customers, and we evolved around our customers. They would come in and say, can you try getting me this? Can you get me this? So that's how we built the lineup we have now. Okay. So we have a lot of unique items that someone that came over to live in Canada hasn't seen this particular product, but we sourced it and we have it for them that like something they used to have as a kid. We have a lot of those unique items, a lot, from like all over the world, and we source it through distributors in Montreal and Toronto that bring in the product in bulk, and we piggyback off of them. Probably the largest European deli in Ottawa. We sell lots because people buy lots. Nothing really complicated about that. We turn over a lot of product. We package it properly. We buy, and we're always consistent. You're always going to find, Cuddy turkey breast, Saint Daniel mortadella. You're always going to get the same brands. We don't flip back and forth to save 20 cents. It's always the same brands the last 29 years. Best sandwiches in town. It's simple. It starts off with fresh bread every day baked in the store. Anything that's left over goes to breadcrumbs. So you're getting a fresh bun every day that was baked probably 4 hours before you get here, okay? Not only baked, made, mix the flour, roll the dough, proof the bread, and bake the bread, okay? Then all the ingredients come right off the shelves. Your lettuce, your tomatoes, all your condiments, and they're cut up fresh in the deli. Not like the big corporate restaurant chains that your lettuce comes in shredded in a bag. You open it up and you throw it in the bin. Takes 2 or 3 days to get here from California. How long is it in the bag? The big difference is like making a sandwich at home, and you don't have to do the work. It's really what the trick is, and using the freshest ingredients possible.
And 1310 AM.
Jean Charest has a Twitter account now, by the way. I was kind of mocking that yesterday, that he didn't have a Twitter account, but he has a Twitter account now, or an official Jean Charest Twitter account, at Jean Charest _, right? At Jean Charest _. And he's gained some followers. I looked this morning at about 8 o'clock. He had about 180 followers. He's up to 2,470. And his slogan is built to win. Built to win. Well, we'll see. Okay. Let's listen to a little bit of the Premier of Ontario from his news conference yesterday, announcing that the mask mandate will end March 21st. This is Ontario Premier Doug Ford.
Well, let me be very clear. There's no pressure on Dr. Moore. I follow the advice and the recommendations of the Chief Medical Officer of Ontario. He consults with the science table, and we're looking forward to the recommendations that he's putting forward at 11 o'clock today. And we're going to take his advice on the time frame moving forward with the masks. And, Mike, you look around the world, no matter if it's CDC down in the U.S. and the rest of the world, we've been super cautious. As a matter of fact, I've been probably accused of being the most cautious leader in North America when it comes to this pandemic, but I want to be cautious. And we're going to take those recommendations and move forward with the advice of Dr. Moore.
All right. So we're back with Lindsay Maskell, Liberal strategist, Andrew Brander, Conservative strategist, and it's Ontario politics this week. So I say cautious. That's what if anything, I've been too cautious. Can he convince people that he was Premier cautious? What do you think, Andrew?
I think in this case he certainly was.
Okay.
As we've discussed many times on this one, not even this lockdown, but the last lockdown was really should have really been the last for him in terms of making any kind of political calculations on this. But clearly, the Premier's making it absolutely clear to people that he's following the advice of our medical professionals, and that this isn't about politics. I found it somewhat surprising to see people suggest that the removal of these last restrictions were politically motivated when, as the Premier just said, we're one of the last jurisdictions in North America still doing these types of things. So if anything, the political choice to keep them was to keep them in place until now. So I don't think the Premier's got to twist a lot of arms to convince people that he has done this slowly and cautiously, and I think that will be part of the brand that sticks going into the campaign.
Okay. What do you think? Doug Ford, Premier cautious.
Well, there were certainly times where it was caution without reason, and then times where it was throwing caution to the wind. Look, other jurisdictions have seen an increase in cases with the removal of masks, and when we did the last phase of opening up again, masks are the last thing we're talking about here. Everything was open and available with the recommendation that we continue to wear masks for a while as we ease our healthcare system. Different people will be in different situations in this. COVID, yesterday it sounded like Doug Ford said, it's over, don't think about it again. For the hundreds of people still in hospital and for thousands and thousands of people with family members waiting for surgeries because of COVID backlog, there's a COVID outbreak at the hospital in my hometown that delayed a small procedure for my father. This is still alive for a lot of people. And it is also a health recommendation from other health professionals that children, particularly because that cannot be vaccinated, that it might be wise for a little longer to continue to have masking in schools. I get that everybody's tired of it. Nobody wants it, but sometimes we have to do the smart thing a little bit longer, an investment of getting our healthcare system in a bit of a better place than it is right now. So hopefully people will use their own best judgment. And I do think the main message should be that, it's now going to be about people's personal choice, but we certainly shouldn't make this
personal responsibility too. Personal responsibility
for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But very fearful about the divide. This action can kind of create. Having seen some of it in the States in the past weeks with work travel, so I'm hoping we will be much more Canadian about it and have people be comfortable with their choices as they continue path forward.
Okay, let's talk about this Leger poll. 12-point lead for the PC Party of Ontario, 39. The Liberals and the NDP are both at 27. This is how Philippe G. Fournier, who writes about polls for Maclean's, sees it. It would simply not be enough for either the Liberals or NDP to siphon voters away from each other to win. The opposition is far more divided than in 2018. With these two parties currently at near identical levels of support in the province, neither currently have a realistic chance of making substantial seat gains from the PCs. Agree? Andrew, agree?
I agree.
Agree. All right.
I completely agree, and I think that these numbers, for the Tories, it means keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah. 39%.
For the Liberals,
wow.
For the Liberals, I do think, the Liberals that I talk to, a lot of their expectations are a lot higher than what this poll represents. So, I think for the Liberals, they really need to start repositioning sort of their framing and doing a better job at setting expectations internally within their party. Lindsay, don't worry, I won't charge for this advice.
All right. Okay. Well, let's get the final word from Lindsay here. We're almost out of time. Let's get the final word from Lindsay here.
Well,
okay.
The nice thing to remember
basically, the conclusion is you have no chance, Lindsay.
That is not the conclusion, because the thing that people need to remember is a poll tells us exactly what people thought yesterday. So there is a long campaign ahead of us, 85 days, I believe. So there is a poll is a moment in time.
A moment in time, a snapshot in time. Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you to both of you. Great discussion this week. Really enjoyed it.
Have a great week.
All the best.
Thanks.
Andrew Brander, Vice President at Crestview. Lindsay, Maskell, Liberal Strategist, worked for a guy named Dalton. 10 o'clock news, and then let's talk about masks. Hopefully for the last time, the Rob Snow Show Talkback Hour will be about the mask mandate. This is the Rob Snow Show on City News.
news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Thursday, March 10th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, minus 2 degrees. It's -1 in Smiths Falls. Here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. Foreign ministers from Russia and Ukraine met today without any success. We get the latest from City News reporter Irene Precklett.
Ukraine's foreign minister says Russia is seeking a surrender from Ukraine and it won't get that. And when it comes to the civilian casualties, the Russian member at the talks is dismissing concerns about that as, quote, pathetic shrieks from Russia's enemies. He also claimed, without providing evidence, that a maternity hospital in Mariupol that was attacked yesterday had been seized by far-right radical fighters who were using it as a base. ABC's Ian Pannell is at a hospital in Kyiv.
All of the injured we saw brought in were civilians. Ludmila Karpachova was running for cover in her hometown of Chernihiv when she was hit with multiple shrapnel injuries. The hospital removed most of it, but one piece is still lodged in her spine. She says when the bombing started, we began to run. I thought there'd be less bombing, and then they began to bomb everything, the whole district.
More than 2 million people have left Ukraine and millions more have been displaced inside the country. Reporting live, Irene Precklett, City News.
City News time, 10:02. Prime Minister Trudeau is in Poland. Most of the estimated 2 million Ukrainians who have fled the Russian war are taking refuge in that country. Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki told Trudeau the war and refugee crisis is something unimaginable in the third decade of the 21st century.
We meet at a turning point which will probably determine and define the future for years or maybe decades. This is why allies like Canada and Poland, we have to be strong and united, and we are so.
Morawiecki planned to talk to Trudeau about how his country can get rid of Russian oil and gas and how Western allies can make the sanctions work effectively. City News time, 10:02, and now your forecast with meteorologist Jill Taylor.
The wind quite brisk this morning, but it will settle down for the afternoon, and we'll have increasing cloud as we work through the day. We'll start, though, with a bit of sunshine. Our high today, +2, another mild day. The average high is about +1. Tonight, cloudy, -8, and tomorrow, mainly cloudy for a good portion of the day. Get into that light snow late tomorrow night, 5 centimeters possible, the high -1. For today, the high +2.
And right now, it's -2 degrees in Ottawa. It's -1 in Smiths Falls. City staff in Ottawa says for the most part they agree with the recommendations made by a provincial housing task force. General Manager of City Planning Steve Willis says there are some modifications to some of the 55 recommendations, but the city has already dealt with a number of those recommendations through its redone city plan. Willis also says there is little in the report that deals with affordable housing, and there are changes proposed as well for Heritage Act, which staff does not agree with. Consumer inflation in the United States, well, that's now reached a 40-year high.
It jumped 7.9% over the past year, the sharpest spike since 1982. The Labor Department report covers the 12 months ending in February, so it does not include the recent oil and gas price hikes following Russia's Ukraine invasion. Since then, average gas prices are up about 62 cents a gallon. Before then, a combination of high consumer spending, pay raises, and supply shortages had already sent prices soaring for everything from food to housing and made inflation the top political threat to both President Biden and congressional Democrats before the midterm elections. The Federal Reserve is set to raise interest rates starting next week in a bid to stem the surge. Sagar Meghani, Washington.
And I'm Andrew Boyle. For News Anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Talk back.
Hello. On the Rob Snow Show. The phone lines are open at 613-750-1310.
Now, the Rob Snow Show continues.
What is your reaction to the announcement that the mask mandate in Ontario is ending on the 21st of March? Do you think it's about time, or do you think it's too soon? Let's get into this today. This is the Talk Back Hour at 750-1310, 750-1310, 613-750-1310, 1, 2, 3, 4 lines available there for you right now. Chance for you to have your say on a hot news story. And this is one of them. The end of the mask mandate. For some, they'll say it's about time. It's time to learn to live with COVID. I hear that all the time. It's time to learn to live with it. It's time we could, or we can't keep living like this. Words to that effect. You hear that, David, from time to we have to learn with it?
All the time.
Yeah.
Increasingly so.
Increasingly so. But I have also heard, Rob, it's all political. Okay? There's an election coming, or I hear things like this. We might be done with the pandemic, but the pandemic isn't done with us. You hear that? It's reckless. It will surely cause an increase in cases. It will cause an increase in hospitalizations and deaths, and we'll probably live to regret it come the fall when we're right back to where we started and we're all wearing masks again. Okay? So where do you come down on this? I mean, where do you fall on this? Or maybe you have an entirely different opinion. I'm open to hearing whatever opinion it is that you have. At 750-1310, 750-1310, 613-750-1310. I mean, outside of vaccines, I don't think there's been anything more controversial over the entire course of this pandemic than the wearing of masks. I mean, the debate started to rage pretty much in the earliest days of the pandemic about mask wearing. And, that's when we had our first taste of what would be, many, many months, years of mixed messages when it came to fighting COVID-19 from health officials, from politicians, all kinds of rules that for a lot of people didn't make a lot of sense. In the earliest days of the pandemic, we heard, well, you shouldn't wear a mask. We heard it, right? There's no need to litigate all of this again. No, you shouldn't wear a mask. Wearing a mask might actually do more harm than good. It might give people a false sense of security. And even though the pandemic started in the spring, even the city of Ottawa didn't impose a mask mandate for public transit until later in the summer of 2020. Because then, by that time, we evolved, or the medical science evolved. We went from don't wear a mask to absolutely wear a mask. We went from don't wear a mask to you must wear a mask. You must wear a mask or face a penalty. So back then, you could forgive people if they had a case of shaken confidence. Like, do these people know what they're doing? But look, it's been 2 years. 2 years tomorrow. Can you imagine? 2 years tomorrow. As a matter of fact, since the pandemic took over our lives, 2 years tomorrow. And I would say with there have been exceptions, of course, but the vast majority of people have followed the rules. And they've complied with the mask mandates. I know there have been lots of news reports about confrontations over masks and people getting yelled at and, physically assaulted. Those stories make the news. What doesn't make the news is the billions of everyday interactions that have happened over the last 2 years between Canadians from all walks of life complying with public health guidelines, including mask mandates. About time or too soon? What is your opinion on the pending end of the mask mandate? Let's get to it here. Josh in Stittsville. Josh.
How are you, Rob?
I'm good. Josh, how are you? It's good to hear from you.
Yeah.
Is it about time or too soon?
I do think it's about time.
All right.
But again, I'm also agree with the fact that we do need to be cautious.
Right.
Obviously, March break's coming up.
Yep.
Kids are going to be loving the fact that they get a week off school. I do see that even though the masks are going to end, that's, I feel like, going to spike our COVID cases a little bit more anyways. But I do feel like it's time, and I do feel like if you're not comfortable and you want to wear a mask, go ahead. Me personally, I'm not going to. I'm done with them. I wear them every day, all day. So, yeah, I'm done with it. I'm glad it's about coming to the end and saying, time to live with this instead of, tippy-toeing around it.
Gotcha, Josh. Thanks for getting us started in this hour. Cautious. I mean, that was like the operative word yesterday from Premier cautious. Doug Ford. This was him yesterday. Yeah.
Mike, you look around the world, no matter if it's CDC down in the U.S. and the rest of the world, we've been super cautious. As a matter of fact, I've been probably accused of being the most cautious leader in North America when it comes to this pandemic, but I want to be cautious, and we're going to take those recommendations and move forward with the advice of Dr. Moore.
Okay, that was Premier Ford yesterday. Nick in Ottawa, you're on City News. Nick, good morning.
Good morning, Rob. How are you?
I'm good. With the mask mandate, is it about time or too soon?
I'm definitely about time. I'm a road salesman. I'm on the road all day, every day.
Okay.
I travel out from Alexandria to Cornwall, out to Kempville, out to Carp near Rockland.
Wow.
The whole, pretty well Eastern Ontario is what I cover, and albeit mostly in an automotive setting. But nobody cares about wearing the masks when I go into these establishments.
Oh, really?
I mean,
okay.
Yeah. There's the odd one. If you walk in with a mask, they'll put one on, but they're not wearing one initially as they're working away.
In their own work environment. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So, and most of them look at me and they go, hey, if you don't need to, you can take it off if you want. I don't care.
That's interesting.
So from all over the city, that's what I get, which I find is really interesting, that people are just, they're done with this. And I don't think I blame them. I mean, even from my own personal situation, I have my wife who's terminally ill, and for both of us are still like, you know what, we're done with this. Like, open up and let's give her. I mean, she's receptive to it, but both of us are going, we got to live.
Okay. So, Nick, you're all around Eastern Ontario, you say?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. Gosh, I hope they pay you mileage.
There's a little extra incentive in there, yes.
My gosh, the price of gas must be a killer for somebody like you doing all that driving.
It is. I average about 4,000 kilometers a month.
A month? Holy cow.
So
wow.
It's up there.
Yeah.
But I have no choice. What else am I going to do, right?
We just heard from our gas guy for City News. It's going to drop 15 cents tonight. So if you can hold off, don't get gas today.
I'll probably burn through my tank of fuel today already. So
okay. Yeah, it'll go down to the bargain basement price of what, $1.75 a liter. So okay, thank you, Nick. Thank you.
Thanks,
okay,
Rob.
yeah. Alex is in Brockville. You're on City News. Alec. Oh, Alex. Alec dropped me. Okay. John in Ottawa. Good morning, John. You're on City News.
Yeah, good morning. How's it
morning,
going?
John. I'm good, John. About time or too soon to end the mask mandate?
Not soon enough, in my opinion.
Soon enough. All right. Okay.
Yeah, I was, especially as a father with young children, especially my daughter, there's been times I've been, saying, hey, you got to put this mask on to go wherever, and she'll start crying and be like,
really?
I don't want to do this. I'm sick of wearing this. Papa, I want to take the mask off. And just that alone, I'm like, I think of the damage we've done to our children with these mask mandates. I was ready for it to be done the day it started, frankly. So I'm very happy. And obviously, if people want to continue to wear one, of course, that's what living in a democratic society is all about. If somebody feels more comfortable wearing a mask, by all means, go ahead, but don't make the rest of us do it just because you're still, have your own risk assessment.
Okay. John, you say damage to children. What kind of damage? Because I hear this from both sides. I hear parents who are very concerned that the mask mandate is ending too soon, and they think that may put their child in harm's way. I also hear that wearing masks for 2 years and children having to wear masks for 2 years has caused damage. What kind of damage do you think has been caused by the wearing of masks for children?
I feel like for my children, at least, this might be, and people would be free to disagree with me, but I feel like it's made my children have this sense of like they're personally doing something wrong, and the masks are almost a punishment. Because, every time I'm like, you have to do this, and there's this sense of, well, like, why do I have to do this? And then I kind of have to respond with, well, to be honest, I'm not 100% sure, because, I don't believe that the masks have actually really accomplished anything unless you're wearing like an N95, like, a legitimate mask. So the basic cloth masks, I'm not convinced they really even make a difference.
Okay.
And I feel like my children just had this sense of like lack of understanding of, why do we have to do this? I don't even understand what's going on. And, the frustration of like, oh, I can't see so-and-so's face. Why can't I see their mouth? Well, I don't know what they're saying because I can't, the amount of times my daughter said, Papa, I don't understand what that guy was saying, or I don't understand what even her, grandparents were saying in some cases, because she's like, I can't see their mouth moving. And I just think this idea of like covering faces, especially for young children, is a strange thing that we're going to look back on and be like, well, did this even accomplish anything?
Okay. All right, John, thank you. Thank you. Very interesting perspective. 10:16, we're talking about the mask mandate. It's ending March 21st. About time? Too soon? What's your opinion? Give me a call. 750-1310. This is the Rob Snow Show, Talk Back Hour on City News.
I started, as I said, at Lester's Barber Shop, and it was kind of, it was one of those things that it was just an opportune time for me to get into it, just because he had decided that he was going to retire after the fire, and then the opportunity presented itself that I could open my own shop. And so I went from a 150 square foot space on St. Patrick's Street to a 600 square foot space just on Beechwood to now here, and I'm in a 1,400 square foot space now. And I don't know, it's been an interesting journey because, you think that you're just going to be just you or a really small space, and then all of a sudden, you've got 10 other people working for you. You're in a much bigger space, and even incorporating the boutique. Last March, when all of this started, we closed down a little bit earlier than everybody else, and I'm going to say, being honest, part of it was social pressure. We shut down before everybody else did, and I'm watching all these other salons, just be really responsible and say we don't want to be a part of the process. So we got ahead of it and closed, and then, the week later, the government's like, everybody's shutting down. And so it was a little nerve-wracking. I guess the first step of us, trying to innovate and just keep moving forward was when the salon is closed, right? It's like, what do you do? Our whole industry is based on being with people, cutting their hair, providing a service. You have to be people together to do that. You can't do that remotely at all. So one of the first things that I saw in our industry, what people were trying to do is they were selling their hair products that they had. And luckily, I've had a website that always had a web store in the back. I just never used it. So as soon as I saw that people were doing that, I was like, okay, this is what we're going to do. I'm going to load up all my stuff. And so that worked out really, really well. And then from there, I managed to find a place that was like a wholesale website that allowed you to have net 60 days. So you don't have to, you can order all the stuff. You don't have to prepay any of it. There's free returns, all that. So that made it really easy for me to bring in other products and start trying to sell it. And so I went from selling hair products to shave products to bath and body products to a little bit of clothing and jewelry, and now it's just morphed into this whole, like, I want to make it a whole legit boutique. And by December of last year, I decided that this is a full-fledged thing and we're going to separate it. It's its own company. So it's really finding an opportunity that's there and running with it. So it's been really fun. Our clients are loving it. Our clients that have been here for a long time, they love it.
On the Rob Snow Show.
Have your say and call now.
613-750-1310.
What is your reaction to the announcement that the mask mandate in Ontario is ending on the 21st of March? About time, too soon? About time, too soon? About time or too soon? Bill in Toronto, you're on City News. Bill.
Hey, Rob.
Hey.
Love the format of the show and love listening to the callers. They've got great input. Because all I wanted to do was give a shout-out to the truckers for freeing North America. Once they got out there, Democrats in the state started dropping their bans, and then it led to the provinces in Canada started dropping all their restrictions and whatever. So, the truckers in Canada actually are returning North America to normal.
Okay. If that's your take on it, Bill, fair enough. Maybe there's something to that. Maybe it accelerated the timeline by a week, by 2 weeks. I don't know. Who could say for sure? You'd never find a politician who would admit to it. I'll tell you that right now. Barry in Ottawa. Barry.
Good morning, Rob.
Yeah, hi. The mask mandate is ending on the 21st. About time? Too soon? What do you think? What do you think?
Oh, I think after what the doctor said about him wearing, the main doctor in Ontario here, saying that he was going to keep wearing the mask in public, in crowded stores and in public places. I think it might be a little bit too soon. There's an election coming up, and my main thought to all the naysayers out there, Rob, is if masks aren't important in a condition like this, then how come whenever someone goes into surgery, all the surgeons, all the nurses, the anesthesiologist, everyone in an operating room is all masked during an operation?
Oh, yeah. Sterile environment. It has to be a sterile environment, right, to prevent infection, right, Barry? We all know this.
Well, exactly. Well,
of course,
it just shows that we spread germs through our breathing.
Yep. So you think it might be too soon? I'm surprised. I'm surprised that you would say that. Okay, Barry, you're in the minority so far, Barry.
Yeah, well.
All right, not usually like that, but okay, Barry. Thank you. Let's take another one here. Yeah, keep them going. 2 lines available. Ray in Cornwall. Ray, you're on City News, right?
Good morning, Rob.
Yeah, hi, Ray. Too soon? About time? What do you think?
Well, I think than Josh earlier on. Josh sounds like Aaron O'Toole's son. Yes, no. Talk about flip-flop. Anyway.
Okay. Well, what do you say, Ray? Come on.
I think it's so let's get with a little bit of knowledge of filtration, which my background is, from not medically, but anyways, any form of prevention of things getting into your system. So we live in a polluted world. So at the end of the day, my answer to your question is, when it is to your benefit in terms of, like, so for instance, somebody comes to my house, I wear a mask. I tell them they don't have to.
Okay.
And that's it. So in the same thing with a public place. If you go into a store and there are people around, or whether or not there are people around, if you want to secure yourself, put a mask on. If you're out in the open, take it off.
Okay.
Soon, no, it's not too soon. Just secure yourself, and at the same time, you're also looking up.
Right. Yep. So you think it's okay to lift the mask mandate then? That it shouldn't be mandated anymore? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it shouldn't be mandated. No, that's correct. Okay. It shouldn't be mandated.
Got you, Ray. Thank you, Ray. Yeah, great stuff. Thank you, Ray. Yeah, you too. Jeremy we're going all over the place today. Cornwall to Smith Falls. Jeremy.
Hey, how you doing, Rob?
I'm good, Jeremy. Thank you. About time, too soon? What do you think?
Oh, it's not soon enough. We should have had this on a while ago.
Oh, really? Okay.
I understand people's rights to have it, but at the same time, no, it's long overdue. On top of that, you got St. Patty's Day coming up. What are you going to have, open to green masks going around? Hard to drink beer through that mask, eh?
They'll find a way. Don't worry.
They'll find a way. All right. Enjoy your day.
Thank you, Jeremy. Yeah. It's one thing I know about St. Patrick's Day. Just let me tell you, I find this strange. We're doing this news story this morning that some people are going to celebrate St. Patrick's Day this weekend.
I didn't hear that story.
Yeah, Andrew was running that story. Maybe that's how they do it in Andrew's house.
But why?
Boyle's house, right? Maybe they do it 2 weekends in a row. They're just like that.
I wouldn't mind that. I could get behind it.
I mean, so let me set the scene for you.
Okay.
I'm like brand new in the radio business, and I'm working the early morning weekend radio news shift. Okay. And one of the things you got to do is, it's like 4 o'clock in the morning. You got to call the police. Find out what happened overnight. Anything notable happen overnight that, we should know about, that we could put in the news? And you get the desk sergeant or whoever's on duty, whatever.
Yeah.
And he said, yeah, it's crazy because it was St. Patrick's Day and it was mild. It's like one of those freak warm fronts moved in. So it was like bedlam up and down Elgin Street and in the Byward Market. All kinds of fights and all kinds of arrests and
street
everything.
parties.
Yeah. Just crazy stuff. So I can tell you just from experience as a newsman, what the police hope for the most for St. Patrick's Day is freezing cold and snowstorms. That's what they want.
Yeah.
That's what they want the most,
100%.
more than anything. Yeah.
That tracks.
Oh, yeah. Is it Nitin?
Yes, I'm speaking.
Hello. You're on the air,
Hello.
sir. Is it?
It's the first time I've been on the air.
Well, I appreciate you picking up the phone and giving me a call. The mask mandate ends March 21st. Do you think it's too soon, or is it about time they did that?
It's probably a very wrong decision. I'm working in a hospital environment.
Okay.
And I feel the only reason we are safe is because of the mask.
Oh, really?
And because of the PPE kits that the healthcare workers are wearing. And it's not right. Yesterday I went to the grocery store, and one of the representatives, she was serving me without a mask.
Oh, really?
And I felt really bad. Like I couldn't confront her to put the mask on. She was an old lady. It didn't feel right to me.
Okay.
But I felt really uncomfortable.
You did? Okay.
Yeah. So I feel this is probably really bad. It's like they are trying to wrong all the studies that the scientists have done. And it's just too soon. Like, it's not right.
Okay.
Especially like in indoor environments. I don't think so. It's a good decision at all.
Well, still in the hospital, if you go into a hospital or any other healthcare setting, like a doctor's office, Nitin, you will still have to wear a mask. That was part of the announcement yesterday. Right.
But even like in grocery stores or someplace else,
Okay. All right.
I don't think so. It's right.
Okay.
Because it's the infections are more where there's more crowded space.
Sure.
And it's a lot in a grocery store. So people not putting masks over there, or even like other settings, it's not right.
Nitin, thank you for calling and expressing your opinion. I hope you'll call back again sometime. Have a great day.
Sure.
Yep. Okay. Halftime talk back hour, just like that. It's about time we ended the mask mandate crowd is winning so far. I am keeping track. We've taken 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 calls, and the score is 7-2. I think that's like a CFL score. 7-2 on the Talkback Hour. Rob Snow Show, City News.
On 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Thursday, March 10th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, -2 degrees. It's 0 in Smiths Falls, and here's what's making news this hour. Talks aimed at reaching a broad ceasefire produced no agreement between Ukraine and Russia. Russia's foreign ministry says a maternity hospital bombed yesterday was housing rebel fighters. Video from the scene, though, show the injured, including a pregnant woman, being pulled from the scene. Russia calls those claims pathetic shrieks from Russia's enemies. Our Prime Minister continues his trip to Europe. He's in Poland today, just about to start another media briefing following a meeting with both the Polish Prime Minister and the President. Majority of 2 million refugees who have fled Ukraine have gone to Poland. Trudeau praised his Polish counterparts for the extraordinary welcoming of those refugees. Trudeau will also be visiting a temporary shelter for refugees in Warsaw later today. Ottawa's Planning Committee dealing with 55 recommendations from a provincial housing task force. General Manager of Planning says for the most part they agree with the recommendations, but many are already dealt with in the city, and there's really no focus in any of the recommendations on affordable housing. City News Time, 10:31. I'm Andrew Boyle. For News Anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Talk back.
Hello. On the Rob Snow Show. The phone lines are open at 613-750-1310.
Now, the Rob Snow Show continues.
What is your reaction to the announcement the mask mandate in Ontario ends on the 21st of March? Do you think it's about time, or do you think it's too soon? Right back to it here. Andrew in Ottawa, you're on City News. Andrew.
Hi, is that Andre?
Andre? Yeah, Andre works too. Yeah, Andre, go ahead. What do you think? What do you think? About time?
Yeah, it's about time. It's not too soon enough, actually. Just wanted to say I've been listening to you throughout the pandemic, and I'm a big fan of you, Rob.
Oh, thank you. That's very kind of you to say. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
And I wanted to throw out my wife and I have actually gone ahead and started trying to conveniently forget our masks in certain settings already.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah.
And, unexpectedly, the reception that we're getting is quite happy, quite positive.
Oh, no grief? No grief? Really?
Well, there's one or two, maybe.
One or two? Okay.
About, I would say the same ratio as your callers today.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, it's about, it's better than 2 to 1, like 3 to 1 so far, Andre.
I think that everybody's pretty done with this.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be a good summer. Everyone's going to be very happy when they finally lift it.
Okay.
At the end of March.
I hope so, Andre. I hope so. Okay.
So thanks for having me.
Yeah. Okay. David, you have a confession?
Yeah, that kind of just jogged my memory. I actually did that yesterday. I meant to tell you this earlier before the show. I went to get gas, and sometimes the pay at the pump doesn't work.
Right.
So I ran in just to pay there and got a bag of chips and walked back to the car, get in the car, sit down to drive away, and I realized there's my mask on the seat next to me.
You didn't wear it in the gas station?
Just didn't have it on. Nobody said anything.
Nobody said anything?
I didn't even notice till I left, yeah. So I guess people, maybe the thought process is shifting.
I was thinking back to last summer. While I was getting ready for this morning's show, this thing popped into my head. Jennifer and I were on our honeymoon, and when we were on our honeymoon, we did this whirlwind kind of tour of Cape Breton and Prince Edward Island, and we spent a few days in Prince Edward Island with Jennifer's side of the family, and the whole region was just kind of emerging from the hard lockdown that they had, the Atlantic bubble. And in Charlottetown, things were slowly starting to reopen, and remember, like shut down tight as a drum. And when you're an island, it's easier to do, right? So they had lifted the mask mandate, Prince Edward Island. We were in Charlottetown, and we went walking around the touristy areas, waterfront of Charlottetown, and we went into a few of the shops, and we noticed people weren't wearing masks, and you didn't have to wear a mask. This was last summer. And I took my mask off, and you know what? It felt weird. And then when we got back to Jennifer's parents' place, we were told in no uncertain terms that the locals, like the residents of Charlottetown, are not too thrilled about tourists coming to the island and not wearing masks in the shops, that it is frowned upon. And that was the end of our maskless adventure in Charlottetown. And we didn't go into any more businesses maskless after that. So, I don't know, just in my own headspace, I don't know if I'm ready to go 100% maskless. It's going to take some getting used to, I guess, in a grocery store or some crowded place. Maybe I keep them handy, you know. I mean, it's not that they're hard to find. It's like masks everywhere, in the armrest, in the glove compartment, hanging up on the coat hangers. It's just like everywhere you turn, there's masks. What I won't miss is mask litter, like people tossing masks, like littering with masks. Like, is there anything more gross than that? I think it's not going to be like flicking a switch that one day we're just going to, oh, okay, it's 2019, and I'm just going to forget that the last 2 years ever happened. Because the last 2 years happened, and it had a profound effect on people. Profound. And especially on how we interact with each other. Rodney, Ottawa. Rodney.
Good morning.
Hey, Rodney.
Yeah.
What do you think about the ending of the mask mandate? Are we doing this too soon, or is it about time?
I think it's sort of too soon.
Too soon, okay.
It's politically motivated, I sort of feel. Oh, hey, maybe a crossover from, the truckers. It might avoid some common sense in the sense of usually things are observed after a 3-week change. So March 1st, you had a change. March 21st, you're going to make another change, but you're really not going to have time to view everything because a lot of people go away for March break.
Right.
And then they'll be coming back. So we'll see a little bit about how that works.
Yeah, that's what some of the critics say, Rodney. Maybe wait and see what impact March break has on cases and stuff like that, right?
Okay, but I'll be a critic with the conversation that others have made that they're going to wear it in the grocery stores.
Yeah.
So you're taking masks off most people, and you're making people very happy. And all through the pandemic, I can avoid everybody in front of me, but I haven't been able to avoid the people behind me. So what's going to happen now if, in my case, I'm wearing a mask? I've had heart surgery twice in the last couple of years during the pandemic. I was a number away from being diabetic. I have a little bit of cancer. I'm gonna be concerned. There's really no information out there for the person that's wearing the mask in the store.
Right.
Are you just going to walk up behind them still without your mask on?
Okay. So you have concerns.
I got more to say to you. It might be a little bit like, at this point in time, crossing the street without looking. And it might come back to bite the politicians that have changed things.
Some people are predicting that. Some people, I heard Dr. Uni on the radio yesterday say, by the fall we could be wearing masks again. I don't know if people would accept wearing masks again, quite frankly. Travis, Carleton Place. Travis.
Hey, good morning, Rob.
Hey, Travis. Too soon? About time? What's the deal here with you?
It's great. I've got a 4 and 2-year-old. We're on our way to Golf Town right now, and we are so excited for these masks to be dropped. My youngest daughter, actually, she's in JK. She doesn't have to wear one at school anymore, which means she can see all the other kids smile and they can see each other's faces. So we're very, very excited. We're going to go on a vacation, and it doesn't matter if we pay $1.80 at the pumps. We are done being negative, sir. I think there's so much negativity. We're done. We're making a choice. And my daughter has a question for you, Rob. She wants to know if you think that Santa's helpers live in homes in the North Pole, or if they live in little tree houses. So maybe you can, give
little
us
tree houses. I don't think they live in tree houses. It's hard to find trees that are tall enough in the North Pole to actually build tree houses. That's what I think. Travis, is Travis still there? Is he still there? Yeah, Travis. Oh, I think we lost Travis. That's okay. I was actually excited. I wanted to hear about Travis's trip to Golf Town. I'm very jealous of his trip to Golf Town. I love that place. James, downtown.
Morning, Rob.
Hey.
How does Dave afford chips after he buys gas? I can't afford to buy chips in the store after I buy gas. Masks, they work. If you look at all the studies from reputable magazines, reputable journals, they work. So I definitely believe that, especially surgical or N95 masks work.
Okay.
That being said, I think it is about time to make it optional. I think personally for my family over the next till May 1st or so, we're going to keep an eye on the wastewater numbers, keep an eye on the CHEO hospitalization numbers, and there may be some situations where we may decide to wear a mask. So maybe a third of the time, but definitely not. So we're not going from 100% to 0%. We're going to be managing our risk depending on the situation and wearing a mask. This week at CHEO, I mean, earlier on in January, they had, I believe, 7 kids for COVID and 7 kids with COVID, so 14 kids in the hospital. But since then, this week they had 0 kids, because it's daily, updated daily.
Okay.
They had 0 kids for COVID. Today it jumped up to 1. They have 1 child who's very likely unvaccinated. So all my kids are, and that means that the infection rate's going down and the vaccination rate is going up. So I think it's about time. I don't think it's politically driven. CDC's there's no election in the United States. There's no election in the UK. There's no election in Denmark, etc. There's no election going on in some of the other provinces.
Right.
So it's not politically driven. And I think actually the truckers may have slowed down things because politicians did not want to look like they're bending to mob rules. So we may have even got this done faster without the truckers, quite frankly.
Okay.
So
all right.
Anyway,
Interesting take. Yeah, you too, James. Always good to hear from you. James mentions CHEO. I was looking. It was early this morning. They may have updated the numbers by now. But local hospitals, OPH, 8 people in local hospitals with an active COVID-19 infection. That's the wording that OPH uses, Ottawa Public Health. Active COVID-19 infection, okay? And 0 patients in ICU in Ottawa, right? Isn't that worth celebrating? And Ontario-wide on the vaccination front, according to the Toronto Star, which updates it on a daily basis, 85% of Ontarians have had at least 1 dose of vaccine, 82% are fully vaccinated. And Ontario-wide, as of yesterday anyway, 237 adult COVID-related critical illness patients in ICU. Ontario-wide, 237. But it also provided a chart. This is the Ontario Hospital Association. Provided a chart to accompany that number, 237, and the trend line is definitely down. It's on the decline. So I'm no expert, but it would seem to be. It's like back to your regularly scheduled chaos in Ontario's hospitals. Up next, Martha in Arnprior. Martha.
Hello.
Hello, Martha. Is it too soon or is it about time to end the mask mandate?
In my opinion, it is well past time, Rob. I was ready yesterday.
Yesterday, okay. All right. Well, you still have to wait 11 more days, I guess. But
I'm counting the minutes.
You are? Okay. Why is that?
Yeah.
Why is that?
I feel like this has just gone on way too long. I'm done with the COVID theater. We've been seeing the same people making the mask rules appearing maskless since this started, and I'm ready to move on. I think everyone is ready to move on, and I think we'll be better off for it.
All right, Martha. Thank you. Good to hear from you in Arnprior today. When we come back, Albert is in Canada, Eric's in Orleans, and Paul's on the Quebec side in Gatineau. 10:44. This is the Rob Snow Show. Talkback hour, 750-1310. One line available. This is City News.
It's such a beautiful feel because it's all natural. I'm able to talk to a lot of people who are going through different journeys of health where they really don't know where to start, where to begin. And I'm happy and grateful to have all this knowledge where I can actually help them and guide them. So, of course, medications have a great place in our system, but even so do natural therapies, which have been around for centuries and centuries. Like, old time, ancient times, everything, herbs grew, everything was done with nature, all healing was done with nature. So I'm totally in love with all the elements with nature. In our beautiful village of Manotick, the Manotick Natural Market, you can find tremendous different things. So we have herbs, we have vitamins, we have natural body care, we do infrared sauna therapy, nutrition counseling, acupuncture, Bowen therapy, energy healing. So we're like a wellness hub along with being a full health food store. We are 1 year into pandemic since it started last year in March. It was a shock. Usually I see things coming, and I definitely did not see that coming. Golden Root is a product that I created 4 years ago, actually for my kids, just for immune system, overall health, and it just took off with certain friends of mine who had cancer or some severe issues, and they started finding that it was really helping them from different tests they had done with their doctor, and I knew I had something really special. So then I went through the proper procedure of being able to sell it. So it's actually, I'm not allowed to make it anymore in my house 4 years ago, and it is made in a Health Canada approved lab, and then it comes to me. And what Golden Root is a formulation of turmeric, ginger, lavender, oregano, and black pepper, all food grade, which is the most bioavailable turmeric in the market right now for pain, inflammation, digestion, immune system, concussion, liver health, and brain health. So, and it tastes like salad dressing. We do a lot of in-house, so we make our in-house concoctions of teas. You can come here, tell us what your health issues are, and we can blend it right there. And there's some that are already prepared beforehand for sleeping, for anxiety, for different things. And in that bar, we basically make cold brew teas and cold brew nitrogen coffee. And again, it's all local. Everything we do is local, and as many herbs we can find locally as well. If a client can't come out, we'll go out our way to deliver it. And you're getting that personal touch when you come in. If you have an issue, we will listen and help you. We're very, very active in the community, so we would like the same thing back for the community to come to.
On the Rob Snow Show.
Have your say and call now.
613-750-1310.
Mask mandate ending on the 21st. About time, too soon? What's your take? What's your take? Eric in Orleans. Eric.
It's about time.
It's about time, Eric says. Okay.
Well, I only have 4 days left. We're flying out for Punta Cana on Sunday or Monday.
Okay, all right.
So, you know what? We're all triple vaxxed. I mean, and we even got COVID, so we're kind of 4 times immune. Are we going to live in a bubble society? Like, get vaccinated, and if you're still scared, then stay at home.
Stay at home. Or, you know, if you don't want to wear a mask, you can wear a mask. There's nothing stopping you from wearing a mask.
I mean, like, I don't understand. Like, we were a bubble society before the pandemic. Now we're going to be what, doubly bubble society? Like, let's just live our lives here. We've done what we could. Yeah. We're the responsible people got their vaccinations, and they stay. If they want me to get a 4th and a 5th, I'll line up for it. No problem. But let's start living our lives here, right. and not look at other people differently when they think differently. But this isn't politically motivated. This is what the general population lined up. 90% of us lined up for vaccines. Let's give us our lives back. That's all.
Gotcha, Eric. Thank you. Yep. I have to say, I was struck by the backlash of the announcement by Doug Ford yesterday about the end of the mask mandate. In some quarters, it has been ferocious. It really has. The allegation is short-sighted. It's driven by politics because the election is coming up. It's not medical science. It's political science, all of this. His fiercest critics, I mean, they're stopping just short of saying that the premier's going to have blood on his hands. And some of the city's more well-known left-wingers, I mean, they're asking Dr. Etches to intervene, to save us from Doug Ford. Sam Hirsch, God bless him, he's Sam Hirsch of Horizons Ottawa, well-known activist. He tweeted yesterday there should be a general strike. General strike, March 21st. General strike. This is not Winnipeg in 1919, okay? Deep breaths, everyone. Deep breaths. Albert in Canada. Good morning, Albert.
Good morning, Rob.
Yeah, hi, Albert. What do you think? About time? Too soon? What do you think?
Well, for me personally, it's not time yet.
Not time yet.
I will tell you, I respect the people's choices, okay, but I will have my mask on, and unfortunately, we've got some great shows coming in, some small venues, big venues. We got Ron James next week coming in town in a small venue. We got Sting coming in a big venue, and I won't go to either of those events as much as I appreciate those two artists, even with the mask on. I think that there could be a possible change for the negative in the future, which I hope doesn't happen. But for myself, if I'm around in September, I'm going long, and I hope to see Elton John outdoors at the Rogers Center. So
okay.
I'll be wearing a mask there too, probably. I don't think it's over. You look around the world and you see what's happening around the world, and people coming out of Poland right now, they all got masks on the trains and stuff like that. And like I say, I respect everybody's decision, but for myself, I'll wear a mask until I know it's basically 99% gone.
Gotcha. Thank you, Albert. All the best, buddy.
Thank you.
Yeah, Albert's a real fighter there. He's a real fighter. Ontario, I have to say, it's not like Ontario is some kind of outlier here by making this announcement. It's a few weeks ahead of the plan in Quebec. Nothing yet from BC, but Dr. Henry is saying mid-March in BC. Alberta and Saskatchewan, no surprise, they've already ended their mask mandates. Manitoba, it's next week. New Brunswick, next week. Nova Scotia will end its mandate on the same day as Ontario, on the 21st. Early April for PEI. I mean, it's not like Doug Ford's going rogue or anything here. And the politicians, I almost said it. They can't win for losing on this. They open up, they get heck. They don't open, they get heck. It's a lose-lose proposition for them. Paul and Gatineau. Paul.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good, Paul. Thank you.
Good. If people want to wear their masks, you know what, all the power to them.
Right.
But I'm out in the public every day. I mean, I work 8 hours on the road, and I interact with a lot of people. And, I have a lot of concerns with what I see when people are afraid to open a door, people are wearing masks, being a single driver in a car. I think the mental stress and the anxieties that people have experienced just by wearing the mask over the last 2 years has to come to an end.
Okay.
If I had any concern, it would solely be to the fact that Canada has 90% vaccination status. The rest of the world is nowhere near us. So my only concern would be to the people coming into the country or the people leaving the country and coming back. I'd be more worried about introducing new virus to Ottawa as opposed to the people residing in Ottawa wearing a mask. I mean, we all live together, so the pandemic is isolated to us. But when we bring this stuff into Canada, that seems a little bit concerning. I mean, people are allowed to get back on a flight. People are allowed to travel. I know that there are some minor restrictions at the border coming into the airports, but it's pretty lax. It seems pretty easy to come back into Ottawa and travel.
Okay.
What do you think?
Thank you, Paul. No disagreement from me on just about everything that you've said there. I think it's a nice synopsis. Greg in Barrhaven. Greg. Hello, Greg. Oh, we lost Greg. That's too bad. We do have time for a few more calls. Stittsville. Ann, you're on City News. Ann, good morning.
Good morning, Rob.
Hi, Ann.
I'm sitting on the fence. I will continue to wear a mask. I wish it was a little longer, but I understand. I don't think it's politically motivated, although I am a liberal. I'm a registered nurse.
Okay.
I wish it was longer.
You wish it was
However,
longer.
I understand.
Okay. So what has you hesitating here then?
Well, I don't think we've seen the proof that
Okay.
that it's on its way down. And Omicron is very, very, very contagious.
Yes.
I have a very good friend who is triply vaccinated, who got it from her son, and although she's fine, she did get sick. And I'm 68 years old, as she is, and it's out there, it's everywhere, and there's still people that are very, very, very vulnerable. So
I understand that, Ann. I understand that.
Yeah.
Locally in the hospital, pardon me. We have 8 people in the hospital here in Ottawa. 8
Yeah,
people.
that's not bad. Yeah.
And nobody in ICU.
Yeah, which
Nobody,
is great. And
right?
you know what? And you know what, Rob? That's because of mandates and because of vaccines.
Right, and maybe because of masks, maybe in part because of masks, right?
Yep.
Maybe,
Yep.
but just how much better does it have to be? I am nobody in the hospital,
Well, yeah.
right? So
I
is that
agree.
even
And
realistic? Is that even realistic? You know?
Yeah, true. But time will tell, right?
Yeah.
And then, of course, if it goes crazy again, which, you know what, in my heart, I don't feel it is. But if it does, I hope that people will be willing to go back to wearing masks and maybe not really strict shutdowns, but, being more careful.
Gotcha. Thank you for the call, Ann. Yeah, I appreciate it. So, that's it. Out of calls. Wow. But it was busy. It was a very busy hour. I kept track about time too soon on the mask mandating March 21st. So we took 17 calls in the hour, and the final score is 12-5. 12-5. So, yeah, about 2-1. 2-1 in favor of it's about time we ditch the masks. Coming up in the final hour of the program, Dr. Doug Manuel is senior scientist at the Ottawa Hospital. He's an epidemiologist. He's a member of Ontario's Science Advisory Table. I spoke with Dr. Manuel this morning, and this is what we talked about, the mask mandate ending March 21st. We talked about the latest modeling, because he's been helping with the modeling, and we talked about what the indications are from the wastewater analysis, because that could be a leading indicator. And I'll tell you, we've been talking to Dr. Manuel for almost 2 years, since the start of all of this. And I've never heard him more optimistic than I heard him this morning when I spoke to him. He actually told me, Rob, I have a spring in my step. He's very encouraged by, and he's like totally a data-driven guy, science-driven guy. He has no political agenda whatsoever. A very rosy, optimistic outlook for what I would say is, for the first time in 2 years, he's usually very, very cautious, as are most, public health experts. So that's coming up at about 11:15. Before that, we're going to talk about this massive redesign that is proposed for Manor Park. It's an absolutely fascinating reshaping of one of Ottawa's really best-known areas, neighborhoods, Manor Park. There's going to be Manor Park North, Manor Park South, and the whole place is going to change. You're not going to recognize it 10, 15 years from now. The Manor Park Community Association president will join me right after the news, along with Elliot Tepper from Carleton University with the latest on Ukraine. This is the Rob Snow Show on City News.
local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Thursday, March 10th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, minus 2 degrees. It's 0 in Smiths Falls. Here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau in Poland, where most of an estimated 2 million Ukrainians who have fled that country after Russia invaded are taking refuge. The Prime Minister of the country told Trudeau this morning the war and refugee crisis in Poland is something unimaginable in the third decade of the 21st century. Trudeau says everyone is doing what they can now to help Poland with the refugee situation.
It is a refugee crisis across this region. And even as we see people here in Poland and elsewhere opening their homes and their communities to support, you need to know, as I have said today, that Canada is here to help.
Now, Trudeau says that includes the Canadian government matching donations that are made to the Red Cross for Ukrainian relief. Canada, he says, will also hold the Russian president to account.
Canada has joined the largest referral to the International Criminal Court in history and offered assistance to expedite this work. The world will continue to make Putin accountable for his war crimes.
Trudeau will visit a refugee center in Warsaw a little bit later on today. City News Time 11:02. Now your forecast with meteorologist Jill Taylor.
The wind quite brisk this morning, but it will settle down for the afternoon, and we'll have increasing cloud as we work through the day. We'll start, though, with a bit of sunshine. Our high today, +2, another mild day. The average high is about +1. Tonight, cloudy, -8, and tomorrow, mainly cloudy for a good portion of the day. Get into that light snow late tomorrow night, 5 centimeters possible, the high -1. For today, the high +2.
And right now it's -2 degrees in Ottawa. It's 0 in Smiths Falls. Ontario is citing the stable COVID-19 test positivity rate and declining hospitalizations as justification for lifting the mask mandates later on this month. Today, the province says that rate decreased by 9 patients, province-wide 742 people in hospital. Now, the health minister says 46% of them were admitted because of COVID. The rest did test positive once they were in hospital. Now, there has been mixed reaction to the lifting of mask mandates. This morning, we hear from a local epidemiologist. City News reporter Chris Curries has that story.
Masks don't need to be worn in many public settings as of March 21st. A lot of back and forth on that, but for a local epidemiologist, generally speaking, he's okay with it.
I may quibble and say it would have been nice to see what happens with March break. May quibble and say, we should have maybe started with, our low-risk folks first, or low-risk settings first. But I think we're going in the right direction, and we're ready.
Dr. Doug Manuel is a senior scientist at the Ottawa Hospital and tells City News he also agrees with wearing masks in schools, noting that it's a high-value setting and it should provide a big boost to students' socialization and education. Chris Curries, City News.
And more with Dr. Manuel coming up shortly on The Rob Snow Show. I'm Andrew Boyle for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
The world is changing.
So keep up with Rob.
The Rob Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News, 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
The remaking of Manor Park is up for discussion right now at the city's planning committee. Let's listen to a little bit of this right now. This is Ralston King. He's the city councillor for that area.
There is a huge amount of ambiguity coming out of the report from the province, especially concerning whether the recommendations that have been put in place would actually repeal or override Heritage Conservation District plans.
Oh, actually, this is about the Housing Affordability Task Force.
Ambiguity.
But Manor Park and the remake of Manor Park is up for discussion later today at the planning committee. It's a big meeting. So this is that's the response, the city's response to the Housing Affordability Task Force report, the task force that was struck by the provincial government. But look, let's get into this remake, this proposed remake, if you will, of Manor Park. We have joining us right now, Natalie Belovic. Am I saying that right? Natalie?
It's Belovic.
Belovic. I apologize for that. President of Manor Park Community Association. It's great to have you on the program today.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
So what is being proposed for Manor Park?
Well, the most sort of glaring number is a 500% intensification of the current community unit count.
Wow.
Which is wow, exactly. Whereas the city's proposing that we're going to be growing 45% over the next 25 years, this project wants to grow it 500% in one small neighborhood.
So I'm seeing here it would be almost 4,000 residential units.
That's correct.
Right? 3,800 according to the city staff. 3,800. A mix
That's
of
correct.
townhomes, stacked dwellings, and apartments of various unit types, the city staff says.
But that's where we sort of have a little bit of an objection and different interpretation, because we feel that there are not enough family-oriented units in this proposal, and too many high-rise and mid-rise buildings.
Oh, I see. Okay, that's interesting. A lot of commercial space as well, right? 10,000 square meters of commercial uses, it says.
Well, once again, the city aspires to have 15-minute neighborhoods, which is in theory a great idea, but doesn't have the wherewithal or the ability to actually enforce that. So if a developer builds something and there's no appetite for renting a commercial space, they will, convert it into residential use. And we saw that happen with Claridge building on Beechwood Avenue, the main shopping street for New Edinburgh and Linden Lee and Rockcliffe and Manor Park and Vanier. They felt that they couldn't rent a commercial space, so they converted into what they're calling work-live units. So somebody who could be a lawyer could have their office on the ground floor and they would live upstairs. But it's the main shopping street, and they feel that retail's not viable there. So we're not very convinced that retail everywhere is going to be viable. The idea is great, but the reality is that people are now shopping online, and they're not supporting small local businesses. People are driven to go to the Costco's of the world and get their good deals or do it online. So the small mom and pop shops that would fill up those retail spaces are sadly disappearing from our communities.
All right. Okay. Then it says 1,870 square meters of social infrastructure. What does that mean, social infrastructure?
So I have to say that this developer has probably more of a social consciousness than a lot of them out there do. And because a lot of the units will be retained as rental units, so some will be sold as condos or houses, and some will be rental apartments and houses. But in order to make a community livable and viable and desirable both for rental or purchase, it's nice to offer up amenity spaces where people can congregate and meet and so on. So that's what he's talking about, and that would be mostly impacting the rental units that he's keeping. But he's been working with the community, so
like community gathering space. This sort
correct.
Of,
yes, and mostly for the residents of those units, not necessarily for the community at large, but we've talked about doing a community garden on that space that people could access to have some better food security. So definitely the dialogue has been positive, and you can't blame the developer for going for the maximum that he can, because who wouldn't? But the city is the one that has to manage those desires and say, well, this is too much, or sure, we're all in favor of this.
It's a nice place to live too. It's a nice place to live too. You're totally inside the greenbelt. Not only that, you're in the core. You're a short walk really from wherever you really need to be. There's shops down at Saint Laurent Montreal Road. There's shopping in New Edinburgh. I could totally see the attractiveness of people wanting to live there, right?
Yeah, well, we live there because it's green and it has really amazing access to the Ottawa River Parkway. We now like the Aviation Parkway, but that use might change if it becomes a transit or a truck route. But it isn't as walkable as you might think. So from my house to get to the shopping strip on Beechwood is about 20 minutes.
Right.
And certainly Manor Park South, which is closer to Montreal Road, does have better access to shopping on Montreal Road, but it's not in the same vein as a Glebe type shopping or a Westboro type shopping or a Wellington West. It's definitely sort of a half suburban, half urban kind of neighborhood.
Okay. No,
But we have one of the sticking points for us though is we have terrible transit in and out of our neighborhood.
Oh, really?
We have the worst bus routes.
What do you have? The number 7 comes through there.
Yeah, which is like the world's worst bus because it's never on time, and then you get 3 of them showing up at the same time because they go through so many high traffic areas. They always run late.
It's a milk run, right? It's a milk run.
It's exactly a milk run. That's exactly the term I'm going to use in my presentation.
Oh, really?
And so people get frustrated by that and end up hopping into a car. So unless the city can show us how they're going to plan to move all these extra people in and out of the neighborhood in a sustainable way by safe bike infrastructure or by good bus service, we also feel that we can't accept this number of people without having the plan for how that's going to happen. And the city doesn't have that plan right now.
Okay. Well, I'm more familiar with, I guess, what would be known as the Manor Park Estates, which I guess, according to this plan, would be Manor Park North. Do I have that right? I'm be more familiar with that. The Manor Park South is the Brittany Drive area.
That's correct.
Right? Has that always been called Manor Park South?
Well, it's actually...
Or is that kind of a new designation?
Well, they've called it Manor Park North and South for the purposes of this application.
Right.
But Manor Park typically is called Manor Park, which is west of Saint Laurent, Manor Park east of Saint Laurent and north of Hemlock, and then Manor Park Hill, which would be the section around Brittany. The real estate neighborhood name is Viscount Alexander Park, but nobody ever calls it that.
No, okay.
I've been in real estate for a long time.
A long time ago when I was a much younger, thinner man, I actually lived on Brittany Drive, and I never knew, I would never have said that I lived in Manor Park. I kind of lived on Brittany Drive because...
Yeah, no, it is part of Manor Park for sure.
Okay.
And it certainly falls into the Manor Park Community Association catchment area.
So tell me about the pledge. There's kind of this pledge, nobody will be displaced. Tell me about that.
Well, so this particular developer is in a really good position because he actually owns all of the rental properties in the neighborhood. So as he starts to build, let's say on Brittany would be the first phase, and he would remove about 20 of the little red brick townhouses in order to build the first tower. Those 20 people would be offered a new house in one of the other red brick townhouses that he owns that would be of equal or greater size at the same rent that they're currently paying.
Okay. What do you think of that?
Well, I think that that's really great.
Yeah.
And, given what happened at Heron Road and the displacement of all of those people, this definitely responds to the danger of that. And to be fair also that this project is going to be phased in, he says, over, 25 years. So in 25 years, some of those very low-paying renters will be, gone for natural causes. So the impact financially is still a commitment because he will pay to move them and he will pay to rehouse them at the same rate that they're currently paying. And a lot of the residents have been there for many, many years because it's a lovely community to live in and those houses have been very affordable.
Okay.
So we think that's a great thing, and I think certainly the city is moving towards creating more of those kind of agreements for large-scale developments.
Okay. I'm just looking here. It says other supportive measures for active transportation, sustainable transportation should be made mandatory. This is according to the city staff. 10% or less grade for underground parking, garage ramps where bicycle parking is located. Secure, protected from whether bicycle parking. Bicycle parking should be 1 space per bedroom, while vehicle parking should be 0.25 spaces per unit, or 1 space for every 4 units. 1 year Presto card for every rental unit. You rent a unit, you get a year Presto, and on-site car sharing. What do you think of all of that?
these are all great aspirations again, and we hope that we can make some of those happen.
Okay.
But once again, if people can't get good bus service, they're going to want to get back in their cars.
Right. Okay.
Because they'll be frustrated. So the city has to ramp up the busing in order to make people actually get on it.
Okay. Wow, it's really interesting. It's going to be an incredible transformation. It sounds like over the next few decades. It's too bad the Dairy Queen's not there anymore.
Yeah, well, we definitely all missed that.
I miss that Dairy Queen. I love that Dairy Queen.
It was such a neighborhood fixture.
Yeah, no man.
And it will be transforming, and we just want to transform it in the right way. And we really feel that the volume of high rises isn't going to be really attractive to family living, and we want to continue to have Manor Park be a really family-oriented neighborhood.
Thank you so much for the conversation. It's great to hear from you today. All the best during your appearance before the committee today.
Thanks, kindly, Rob. Have a great day.
You too. Bye. Natalie Belovic is the president of the Manor Park Community Association. Do you know the Dairy Queen I'm talking about in Manor Park? The Manor Park Dairy Queen?
No, I don't.
I did a radio show one time, raging debate about whether that was the first Dairy Queen in Ottawa.
First that was ever on Merivale.
Some people think it's that one.
Okay.
See, we could probably do this during the Friday free-for-all tomorrow. Some people think it's that one, David, at Maryville, that's the original one. That looks the most original. Some people say it's the Manor Park one because it doesn't look like the original Dairy Queen, but it's still just takeout. And still others believe it's the one in the Glebe. Remember, the one in the Glebe is kind of old too. Or Old Ottawa South, whatever it is. I don't think that debate has ever been settled, actually.
It's riveting.
It is.
Yeah.
People care about stuff like that. It's ice cream. Dr. Doug Manuel next on ending the mask mandate. This is City News.
We just took over this business about a few weeks prior to the pandemic, but we've been loving the community, the people, very friendly, but it's been very difficult starting up a new business, just the time that we did, but I'm sure it's the same everywhere. We did take a broken business, which doesn't help us, but we thought we believe in what we do. We're very passionate about food, and we just really wanted to share the Iraqi culture through our food. All our recipes are homemade, so this is very unique. Usually you hear restaurants, shops, it's all frozen food or prepared food, so nothing here is prepared, everything is homemade. We get our meat and produce from a local farm, so supporting local is the way to go. We are supporting all the way. And our meat are actually marinated the day of, so it's as fresh as can be. Quality ingredients and everything is made from scratch. I get a lot of people when they come in, they say it tastes like Middle Eastern, like back home. So for you to have been to Iraq and have the food there, you can really compare and see the similarity. We do like to focus on healthy. So our recipes, not only the homemade, again, everything is from scratch, but we have from combos and to small sandwiches. One of our favorites and very popular is the chicken salad and the beef salad. So now you're getting all the protein and all these amazing ingredients that we all need. During this time, I find a lot of people are sitting at home and not enough movement. So to come here and get something healthy other than go elsewhere and just put, what's not so good for our bodies, makes a huge difference. So we have shawarma sandwiches, combos. I mean, if you're looking for a meal to feed your family, I would highly recommend the family platter. It comes literally with everything, with potatoes, with rice, with chicken, with beef, and we don't charge extra for mix. I know a lot of places do. Here we just add everything to your platter. And lots of healthy choices for sure. We're very passionate about food, and for our small family business, it's been good. Like I said, it's a little struggle, but we are not a chained restaurant.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News, 101.1 FM
and 1310 AM.
Let's talk about the lifting of the mask mandate. For Ontario, the date on the calendar is March 21st, announced yesterday by the Premier. Let's get some reaction from Dr. Doug Manuel, senior scientist, Ottawa Hospital, epidemiologist, and a member of the Science Advisory Table. Good morning.
Good morning.
What do you think of the decision?
Well, we're getting there. Rob, if I have a furrow on my brow, then start buying masks. Things are going to happen in a few weeks, and I'm actually got a little bit of a spring in my step. I'm standing taller. We're doing great. We're doing really well, and I think that's the first thing to recognize. I know for a lot of people, it feels there's a lot of people feeling good and bad about the announcement. But I think it's just first helpful to pause and say, things are going well. 2020 is behind us. 2021 is behind us. January is behind us. So for that all said, I may quibble and say it would have been nice to see what happens with March break. May quibble and say, we should have maybe started with, our low-risk folks first, or low-risk settings first. But I think we're going in the right direction, and we're ready.
You're very upbeat, more upbeat than I can really, I think, ever remember in the 2 years that we've been doing these interviews. So what has you so upbeat? This is very encouraging for me.
I know, and I've been seeing a lot of the preliminary model updates. They're going to be coming in the next week or two, but we're coming down we've been coming down really well. If you remember, I think last time we talked, the models were all over the place, and there's some scenarios that weren't looking good, and we're on pretty much the most favorable track, which means that we're getting our immunity really up there through the easy way, vaccination, and also the hard way through acquiring infection. But that level of immunity is getting up high enough that we're not going back to these overwhelming ICUs and doubling times of 2 days and things like this. I'm expecting, and there's a lot of scenarios that we're going to see an increase over the next few weeks. And as we lift masks are really, really important, and we need to be really conscious of our immunocompromised folks, but we've gotten through so much, and the days are getting brighter for sure.
Okay. Is there though kind of a fog with the data because we're not testing the way we used to? What do you think about that?
No, that's true, and I keep an eye on the wastewater very, very closely. That's going to be, and it's been inching up a bit. It's kind of flat right now, but it has been trending upward. And like I said, I'm kind of expecting cases will increase. Maybe they won't. But I think we're like it's a different game now because we've got a higher level of immunity from so many people getting Omicron so far on top of the vaccines. So we just don't have that, all that dry wood in the forest to cause forest fires and burning really quickly. It's been raining now for a while, and the potential for big waves is getting smaller and smaller. Yes, we're going to have variants and other things, but I think the next 6 months, the most likely scenarios are going to be, feeling like a lot different than it has been for the last 2 years.
Okay, what are the risks? I mean, there's always a risk. And this is a calculated risk to do this. So what's the risk here?
The risk is that, cases will go up. I think there are some scenarios where ICU is going to go up, getting uncomfortable, but I think those are kind of the worst case scenarios. In UK, we're actually, we don't have as much immunity as other places that have opened up, so there are some risks for that as well. And, what we're seeing this week in places like UK is increasing cases for older people. And they're not sure why. That the big hypothesis is that we've had people that have been, in hiding for 2 years. And there's more mixing now. So as people get out and about, there's still a lot of infection going on. And people who have been safe, those people can get infected. Please get your third dose. Please get your first dose if you haven't had any. That's your personal protection. And if you have 3 doses, even if you're immunocompromised, you've got pretty good protection. But we do have concerns about older people and people who are immunocompromised. Please be mindful of that. That if people are wearing masks, you don't know why they're wearing masks. They could be immunocompromised. And be just kind. Be kind to them. Get vaccinated first. That's the kindest thing you can do, and then maybe put on your mask. But we still have people at risk. We're still going to have infections. We're going to still have people dying.
What should be happening in classroom settings? What's your opinion on that?
Well, schools have been really, you ask 5 scientists, you're going to get 5 answers, it seems. But I shouldn't say that. I think most of us have been feeling that the schools have been doing a great job. I have. I feel comfortable about masks coming off in schools because they've been doing such a great job, and that's a high value setting, especially for the younger kids. Getting the mask off can improve their socialization and education. Yes, they've been doing fantastic, but we haven't seen, even with Omicron, we haven't seen a lot of spread inside the schools. It's been mostly outside the schools in the social settings.
Okay. What about other congregate settings? The decision has been made, obviously, long-term care homes, retirement homes, doctors' offices, hospital settings. That seems like a no-brainer, but what do you think?
I think it's a no-brainer. I think this is the areas that we're going to have still a lot of challenges with, and we need to be very careful that we're not getting overly enthusiastic. And so in that sense, I think we are still taking a graded approach. I think it could be even more graded, but we'll need to be very careful. I think the analogies with flu are good, but they only go so far. This is still twice as deadly as flu for older people, and 3 or 4 times more infectious than the common cold or flu. This is not, this has been hard because it's a really challenging infection, and it's not going away. But for most people, who, if we have a great way to protect you, it's called vaccination, but they're not as effective and longer lasting in our older people.
How will you conduct your own mask-wearing routine, Doctor? I mean, I have to say, I'll probably, I think for the next little while, if I go to a grocery store, I'll probably wear it. A crowded setting. There's kind of a psychological hurdle to overcome, I think, for a lot of people, and I'm one of them. But what about you? What are you planning to do?
Well, I'm the same. I haven't been doing clinic. I've been focusing on the epidemiology. So I've been, at my desk a lot the last 2 years. So I'm kind of the same. And I know a lot of people in that boat as well. My partner's a psychologist. She said, if you have a fear of heights, don't go to the tallest building right away. It's called graded exposure.
Graded exposure. Okay.
You first look over a 2-foot ledge, and you keep on going from there. So I think we have to be mindful that for a lot of people, there's a lot of people out there. There's a lot of immunocompromised people out there, but also there's people that we all need to have a transition. And so I think we all need to be kind and just take small steps. Just take small steps.
Okay. Is it too soon to know what would happen in the fall, or do we have a decent idea because we've been through 2 fall seasons with this virus now? What do you expect?
Well, I hope that we're going to talk about the fall at some point for sure, and I'll be still working like crazy trying to make sure that we're in good shape. I think that first I think we all just need to take the next little while and be grateful for where we are. But in the fall, we're going to have some challenges. We're going to have variants are going to come. That's the most likely scenario, and our short-term immunity doesn't hold that well, especially for older people. So we are anticipating that this is going to be a seasonal infection, and there's going to be some bad years and there's going to be some good years. And we will need ongoing immunization and vaccinations. But I think, like you were saying, that's 6 months away. And I think the next 6 months, the most likely scenario is looking really good. And the likelihood of variants, hopefully, will be quite small.
Okay. All right. Thank you for the optimism. Nice boost today. That's really good.
My pleasure.
Yeah. Thanks again. Yeah. We'll talk soon. Bye-bye.
Okay.
City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Thursday, March 10th. Good morning. I'm Danielle Bain. Right now in Ottawa, it's -1, partly cloudy skies, and in Smiths Falls, it's +1. Here's what's making news this hour. Talks aimed at reaching a broad ceasefire produced no agreement between Ukraine and Russia. Ukrainian officials say the airstrike on a maternity hospital yesterday killed 3 people, and it should be considered a war crime. Many others were injured, including a pregnant woman who was pulled from the scene. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau stood alongside Poland's president in a joint news conference earlier where he announced Canada is raising its financial commitment to address the humanitarian crisis in Ukraine. Trudeau will go on to visit a refugee shelter today along with the mayor of Warsaw, and then he will meet with United States Vice President Kamala Harris, where the two will address the Ukrainian refugee crisis and next steps. Local video store Ross Video has received an Emmy Award for Technology and Engineering from the National Academy of Television Arts and Sciences. Ross Video is being honored for its Prime Stream Media Asset Management System, which enables broadcasters to access content creation workflows remotely and across geographically dispersed facilities quickly and efficiently. And Ontario is citing the stable COVID-19 test positivity rate and declining hospitalizations as justification for lifting mask mandates later this month. Today, the province says the hospitalization rate decreased by 9 patients to 742. The health minister says 46% of them were admitted for COVID-19. The rest were admitted for other reasons, then tested positive once they were in hospital. City News Time, 11:35. I'm Danielle Bain. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
He's a pillar of community opinion.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM
and 1310 AM.
Professor Elliot Tepper is here for his weekly feature called The World. Distinguished Senior Fellow, Norman Paterson School of International Affairs at Carleton University. Good morning. Welcome back.
Oh, thank you. Good morning, Rob.
I want to read a little bit. This is from yesterday's Globe and Mail editorial.
Yep.
The United States, I'm quoting here, the United States was happy enough to keep on buying Russian oil until an invasion of Ukraine forced a turning off of the tap. Now the United States is courting Saudi Arabia, Iran, and Venezuela to fill the gap. Hey, America, look up north. And it concludes, Russia's attack on Ukraine has changed the global energy market. Canadian oil and gas has a big role to play in this new world. Perhaps the Trudeau government could start by reminding Mr. Biden of that. What do you think about that, Professor?
Oh, a lot of things. This is kind of a fun with numbers episode as well. The implication there is that had Keystone XL gone ahead, then, according to the Globe's reckoning, the market would have gone up to the point where it would have then been profitable, and there would be much more material to push through those pipelines if the pipeline existed. Others have disputed that reckoning. What is very clear is the world does need to reorient itself. There's kind of a theme. There's an acceleration of trends, I think, that this Ukraine crisis is showing us. One of those is we really got to get off oil. One of the issues going on right now within OPEC and OPEC Plus is if we continue to reap these great bonus harvest of money, it will get to the point where the world will say, hey, we don't want to do that anymore. We want to get off oil altogether. What we do have is, however, I think a lack of a continental energy policy. That is, the United States seems to have an up and down view of their own energy production. What we have is a situation where the U.S. became a superpower through fracking. The U.S. became the world's largest exporter of natural gas and oil, I believe, and that's because they had a new technology which elevated them. Then Russia and OPEC, in particularly Saudi Arabia, decided to crush it. And so they flooded the world with oil.
Yeah, they had a price war, right?
Yeah, price war, and it worked. And then the U.S. has been decreasing its reliance on fracking. So subterranean to all of the geopolitics, which is more my field, is the whole issue of how much energy can Canada provide America in a disciplined way, in a structured way, keeping in mind, I think that a great deal of politics has gone into saying that Canadian oil is dirty. A big base of the Biden party is his Democratic Party are the environmentalists. So how much is this? I've been calling it a rehabilitation of the autocrats tour, Venezuela, Iran, Saudi Arabia. It has to do with the fact that the domestic politics won't allow a more rational the resources we have.
Okay, but I guess what I'm wondering is, how should we view, if this is a turning point here, this invasion by Russia, if this is a turning point and a serious threat to the security of the world,
yes,
how should we view energy through that lens? Do we view it as economic policy, but in addition to that, as national security policy? Because it seems to me that's the German pivot. Is it's not just about economic security; it's national security.
Yes, the Germans have come to realize that and part of what you and I talked about last week, the new Europe. Europe more broadly has realized that the holiday from history, as it's being called, is over, that we are going back to not that era of prolonged peace that we have had in our part of the world, not elsewhere. Now it's time to get back to reality. The reality has been an overdependence on Russian oil, which gave leverage to Russia at a time of crisis, and it's time to reorient and rethink everybody's policy. Germany, of course, being the most prominent of those, but it extends to others as well. So the U.S. is now saying we can get off, we being the U.S. and Canada and the U.K. can get off Russian oil, but we realize that our European partners have a more complex situation. We're willing to have a differentiated policy. The 40% dependence on energy out of Russia into Europe is now being fundamentally re-examined.
Okay. On the sanctions grow by the day. Roman Abramovich had assets seized today, for example, by the UK government, another Russian oligarch with close ties to Putin, owner of the Chelsea Football Club.
Yes.
What is your opinion on the sanctions? Are they working? Are they having the desired effect? What do you think, Professor?
The acceleration of trends, I think, comes into this again as well. The sanctions came shockingly fast and are shockingly effective in terms of what potentially they will do over a period of time.
Okay.
Over an 8-day period. 8 days, Rob, the Russians found themselves under massive sanctions, including basically cutting off their financial access to the world and sanctioning of the oligarchs, including the one you just mentioned, to put a squeeze on the people around Putin, to squeeze Putin, but also to squeeze the Russian population. We'll have to come to that as well. We have a rogue regime, in effect, in Russia right now. What do you do about a rogue regime? Well, one of the trends that's going to happen now is, well, if you want to be a rogue regime, if you want to buck the existing consensus, get off the U.S. dollar. Let's get onto the Chinese yuan. So I think the possibility that China is going to benefit out of all this is very high.
Oh, really? Okay. But given the economic pain,
yes,
for ordinary Russians,
yes,
could you see a resistance movement mount in Russia? We've already seen people take to the streets. I mean, they're brave people to be taking to the streets, and they're being rounded up and they're being arrested. I don't know what becomes of them once they're arrested, but they're willing to risk it anyway to protest this war inside Russia. It can't be good when your currency has basically collapsed. The stock market's collapsed. The interest rates have doubled. I wonder what this does to resistance against the war, resistance against Putin in Russia. What do you think could become of this? Anything? Or?
Well, there's two aspects here. One is precisely what you're pointing out. There's going to be a lot of pain. Remember, it wasn't that long ago that hundreds of thousands of people took to the streets all across Russia, not just in Moscow, under Navalny's leadership, saying, Putin is a thief and corruption is the issue, and his corruption was there. So this is he learned how to manage that, the draconian crackdown on street protests. And I think that's an awful lot of what's going on in the Ukraine situation, by the way. He's very afraid of being overthrown by people's power, and that's part of what's going on. But the question of what it's going to do, that country is so under police control, it's very hard to say that the population is going to rise up. But on the other hand, they are indeed facing enormous sanctions. Will this lead to a societal revulsion against the leadership, or can the leadership, and they're very skilled at this, not only put down protest, but start to get we are under attack, rally around the flag. This is a Leningrad situation all over again. We must defend ourselves. And will they all? So I think there will be a split opinion. The core base support of Mr. Putin is likely to expand.
Oh, my.
In terms of that aspect. But it's a question now for the Russian people to work out as to which direction it's going to go. Throw out the bombs. They put us in the situation. They're corrupt. Or is it going to be we have suffered in the past from invasion, and this is another form of that, a kind of an invasion, and we will gather around our mother Russia.
Oh, very interesting. Okay, when we come back, the issue of air support for Ukraine with Professor Elliot Tepper. He's with the Norman Patterson School of International Affairs at Carleton University. This is the Rob Snow Show on City News.
This affected us big time because when, you know how we are seasoned, we have clothes for the spring, clothes for the winter. At that time, lots of clothes didn't arrive on time from Europe or from here because some factory shut down. So, and this put us in an odd position. We received not all the merchandise, part of the merchandise. And people, and for us, we have to be careful, you know, especially with the virus going on. Did affect the business, of course, like everybody else. We're not immune, and since the government helped, you know, this did a little bit good for us too, but still affected all the sectors, especially clothing. You know, you can see big corporation affected bad because nobody was thought it's gonna be like this. You know, earthquake might happen, we joke about it before, things might happen, but this was like a third war, but with a virus. So how to survive, that's the question, and we're doing our best to work with the mall, especially rent in a mall is very high. The government, they have certain, let's say, condition, like how many people will be in the mall or in the stores, etc. Yeah, it's a big factor, but of course, if my store has a back doors, or just will be better, it will be much better. At least we can have curbside much easy, because we have to shut down completely, you know. And this left a mark on us, on everybody too. People always ask me, go online. Certain things you can't go online. Let's say T-shirt, certain product people don't know how to fit, but when it comes to clothing, like it's different completely. Let's say I have a customer comes, you can give him 44, but certain suit he might take 42, certain suit he might take 46. So, and how could, I mean, suit is not gonna fit the same. And I see people come back and they show me what they got online and not the same fabric. Mostly young people, but if you really wanna shop, you have to go to the store because everything will be around you. You wanna be sure the color look good, the fit will look good, especially when you spend, doesn't matter how much money, whether 300 or 2,000, you know? You have to try, you have to see what's going on. Please don't be shy, contact us. It will be a pleasure for me to take a suit or coat or anything. Like sometimes people have a funeral, they have things, they have a wedding, they don't want to come to the mall. If I get all the information, I will go and meet them at their home or their business offices. I'm gonna start doing that, you know, and this will help the business and help the people. Like they're afraid to come to the mall for time being, or they're too busy at work. They cannot go anywhere at certain times, so I'm glad to do that.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
We're back with The World with Professor Elliot Tepper from Carleton University, longtime international affairs professor at Carleton University. What is your understanding, Professor, of how air support for Ukraine might work?
Well, if we're talking about this fascinating proposal, there's two proposals. One is that Poland can transfer the MiGs that it has. We should back up a bit. Yep. The Ukrainian Air Force relies on Russian technology, of course. They were trained on MiGs, and MiG-29s specifically. The availability of gaining some air cover in part depends on getting more planes to them. Poland said, well, we've had some, Bulgaria has some as well, and there was a lot of pressure on them. Well, give them over. And finally, Poland said, yes, we'll do that. We'll give them free, but we are not going to give them directly. We are not going to just transfer them to Ukraine. That will put a bullseye on us from Russia. Right. We'll give them to the U.S., and send them to Ramstein and airfield in Germany, and then the U.S. can send them up. So what we have here is an immediate refusal by the U.S. to consider it. One of the acceleration of trends that I fear the most is that Russia is gaining its way, including blocking the potential use of nuclear weapons has so intimidated, so that's the wrong word, has so conditioned the response to what's going on in Ukraine that the U.S. immediately said, the Pentagon said, we're not going to permit that. We are going to do what we have been doing all along. We will defend NATO, but we will not do anything that might lead to a direct confrontation between the United States and NATO and Russia, because Russia has immediately, in fact, prior to launching this invasion, said, remember, we've got nuclear weapons, and they've got a tactical nuclear weapon that'll take me down another side track, but tactical use of nuclear weapons strategy, which is very concerning. The acceleration here, so to answer the question, it looks as if there is going to be no air cover whatsoever provided additionally to the Ukrainians, who are saying, our children are being bombed from the air, and you won't protect us. That's a real concern, I think.
Okay, I was just wondering, because Putin has said, if NATO moves to impose any kind of no-fly zone, we would consider that an escalation. We would consider that an act of war with NATO, and the next thing you know, it's big trouble for everybody. Right. So if Polish jets are in the sky, even though they have Ukrainian pilots, I wonder how that would be interpreted by the Russians.
At the moment, Rob, that's the point is they're not going to get them.
They're not going to get them anyway. So
no. Okay. At the moment, things can change. Of course, there was some talk about disassembling them and put them in trucks and shipping them across the border. But the point is that brandishing the nuclear threat was sufficient in this instance in advance, to the point where you and I've talked about this over several weeks. Even well before this crisis, the U.S. did not do what Canada's been doing as part of a NATO exercise in the Baltics, have tripwire troops. The U.S. did not string 8,000 troops across Ukraine before this buildup, just in the faint possibility that Russia might attack. So the acceleration of trend that bothers me, and it is that a lesson will be drawn that you can gain nuclear weapons and therefore prevent any actions against you anywhere. What's Iran hearing that? What about North Korea? Yeah. Are there other states out there that are saying the big lesson, the big takeaway, we're going to take out the Ukraine crisis, whatever, is nuclear?
Yeah. What happened to MAD? I thought.
Yes, that's mutual assured destruction. It's being undermined because of the concept of tactical nuclear weapons. Oh, we won't have a big one. We'll just have little ones which can take out, whole cities. I think this is mad defense. I've never had any patience whatsoever with this as a way to avoid MAD, as a way of deterring the possible use of nuclear weapons ever again, and now it's back.
Okay. Let's wrap up on this. The Prime Minister of Israel has met with Putin once, maybe twice. It may have been twice. I'm not sure. But what role could Israel play if there is a way to diffuse this somehow? How could it work that Israel could play peace broker?
Yes, this is a fascinating case. Turkey is also involved in the same kind of effort. Israel has a unique position in that it has very good relations both with Russia and Ukraine, and it has national interest involved with each of them. And there's a large Jewish population in Ukraine, there's a very large population in Russia, and there's a whole political party in Israel, part of the coalition, that's made up of Russian diaspora inside Israel. So to focus specifically on this, Israel has had a relationship with Russia over a long period of time, nurtured by Mr. Netanyahu, who took along with him a cabinet member named Dalton, and Mr. Bennett, the current prime minister, took the same cabinet minister up. And what this shows is that Mr. Putin is willing to talk, willing to explore options, because a 3-hour meeting in the midst of a crisis was held with the Prime Minister of Israel, and then the Prime Minister of Israel also talked to Zelensky and to the Germans and so forth. There's a lot more to this story. So one of the elements of this conflict is there are avenues of communication, but probably not mediation by countries such as Turkey and Israel. They can be interlocutors. They can deliver messages. They can help open up avenues, but it's likely to only be, say, China or even the U.S., for that matter, that can actually bring a resolution. But the other side of this that hasn't been noticed, and it brings us back full circle to where we opened up today, is that Russia and Israel have a very special relationship because of Syria. Russia has intervened decisively in the Syrian campaign to keep Assad in power, working closely with Iran. But their interests don't overlap. Iran has interest in eliminating Israel as a state, and Israel in turn says we need freedom of the air inside Syria to take out the shipments to Hezbollah and some other activities. There's been a deconfliction between Russia and Israel, in that Israel never goes in and does things without telling Russia, please get your planes out of the way, and Russia's saying, yeah, we don't want to mess with you either. So there's an all about Iran aspect to the Ukrainian crisis that is, say, kind of not visible, because a lot of this does relate, as you pointed out, to energy. And a lot of what's going on in the Middle East is that the Sunni states have been saying to Mr. Biden, we're not even going to answer your phone calls. You are going to give Iran a way out of the sanctions. You're going to give them money. They're going to use it against us. So therefore, we're not going to help you in any way whatsoever until you can see that we have legitimate national security concerns over Iran.
This program is brought to you by